All right. According to this, we're live. I'm going to make sure that we are. If everybody will just bear with me. Go into YouTube stuff. Oops. But yeah, while I'm doing that, why don't we have my guests introduce themselves? Let's start with Sage, who most of you may know, but might be a different side that you get to see.
Yeah, obviously I'm Sage, and normally I talk about One Piece and stuff, but today I'll be talking about my experiences with mental health. Specifically today we're looking into depression, and my experiences with depression are from a bipolar perspective. So that's a bit about me.
All right.
Okay.
And one of my longest friends in life, one of my best friends in the world. Introduce yourself.
I'm Sabrina, and I have just I'm an avid video game player, and yeah, we're talking about depression today. My perspective is probably from a position of like suicidal ideology, as well as working in the veterinary field and compassion fatigue, all of that leading to our complex depressive disorders. So. Well, I'll get into kind of why veterinarians have one of the highest rates of suicide, and we'll see what comes of it.
There we go. All right. And you heard it there first, folks. That's them. And of course, you know me, Captain Valen. I do sometimes go by my real name, Theo Allen. That's now you can put the name together pretty easily. But today we're doing what I'm going to call mental health. All right, it's going to be the long-term name of the stream, and today it's going to be a more broad conversation about depression in general. All right, I got some fun visuals behind me, not to detract from the incredibly serious nature of the things that we're going to be talking about. So stick with us, and yeah, if you have anything to say, please feel free to comment in the chat, and I'll do my best to kind of comment on them if I have any advice, blah blah blah, whatever. You know how comments work. So let's just get right into it. I'm gonna start with things that you feel. I'm gonna ask the question about whether or not you feel, as a person, you can feel yourself like falling into depression, not necessarily having it hit, but headed in that direction.
Mm. Who do you want to start?
You know what, Sage? Let's go Sage
Yeah.
Sabi for now, just to keep it easy.
Okay.
Oh, what do you want?
Can you feel yourself, like, before you actually hit depression, can you feel yourself start to slide down that road?
It's a hard one. For me, I think clarity is something that we always have more in hindsight. And it's always easier to identify depression when we're getting past it or things like that. Often depressed thoughts manifest themselves as very real ideologies that we might hold. And it's difficult for me to identify every single time that I'm having more of a depressed ideology than a realistic ideology.
All right.
So for me, the big thing has been monitoring how I feel on a mood scale. And that allows me to assess how I actually feel compared to, what my symptoms are, what's actually happening, and then compare that to the mood scale, and then being able to move forward from there.
All right. So it takes, for you, it's just about a keen self-awareness, not necessarily outside triggers or things like that, but it's a introspective kind of thing.
Well, for seeing where I'm going down the rabbit hole, yeah. Trigger wise, for me, where I've got bipolar, I don't really need a trigger. Sometimes these things just happen.
All right. That's fair. Sorry, maybe trigger was the wrong word for that, but
No, actually, most people do find that they can associate triggers with their
all
mood
right.
swings and things like that. That's very common. It's more unusual for these things to be spontaneous.
All right, sweet. Sabi.
I would say it kind of depends. When when it's as you say kind of triggered, I can tell when I have compassion fatigue, and that's basically from, noticing changes in like minute behaviors, like compassion fatigue and things like that tend to manifest themselves as almost OCD like behaviors
Could you
that you
explain?
don't.
Sorry to interrupt, but could you explain compassion fatigue for people who might be watching who may
Yeah.
not know?
So compassion fatigue is a kind of a syndrome of behaviors that come from continual giving, as opposed to, and most service industries will have some level of compassion fatigue where they do so much for other people, or they're giving so much of themselves to other things and other people that at some point they just have nothing left emotionally for themselves. And you can see that a lot when you think about it in a course of a day. For a veterinarian, they may euthanize between 2 to 7 pets a day, depending on it, and those types of things. When you're dealing with the emotional burden of having to hang on to a portion of those people's sorrows, it just gets heavier and heavier, and so people become literally and figuratively tired from the emotional weight. And so that's what my perspective of compassion fatigue is. And when it's that, when you can identify the sources and you can identify the behaviors and mannerisms associated with it, then yes, I would say that there's a trigger. You can see yourself going that direction, and more importantly, other people tend to see it first. And so when it comes to that kind of stuff, you really have to depend. If you have a circle, you have to depend on people to be able to be like, hey, you're like running into the ground right now.
That's that's pretty. Where'd my pen go? That is a really good point. All right.
Yeah. But I would say when I'm having a true like depressive spell, because I'm also just chemically depressed,
Mm-hmm.
there are times where I will fall into a depression and there is no trigger and it's just there. And you're like, wow, I'm depressed today. I guess I'll hide in a blanket. You know, it's kind of
Yeah.
it's kind of like you have to, like, those things just come on and you can't just. I think it's more of a like recognizing once you're there, because when it's chemical, there's no control over it. Your brain just all of a sudden decides to take a proverbial dump on you.
That's a fact. For me, I'll speak on myself now. It's hard for me to find myself when I go down those roads. I'm not. A lot of people say that, like you, through introspection and this, that, and the third, they can find themselves. I can't. I can't quite get myself before I slip in. Like I guess maybe that's not fair. I find myself like I guess on the cusp, like on the rim of the hole, I guess is the way to put it. Since a hole is a really it's just the way to put it, and it's it's really hard because you're like already teetering over the edge, and it feels like there's a wind at your back trying to get you in, and by then it's a lot of times just too late. I got to deal with the fact that I'm about to take a dip. You know what I mean? And so I guess my answer is yes, I can, but never with enough time to do anything about it.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, maybe the difference between someone who is, who has like some kind of depressive disorder or mental illness directed towards a depressive disorder, that compared to someone going through a depressive spell with no mental illness, is that, people can be situationally depressed versus chemically depressed. And those two things are very different. And I think some people forget to draw that line, that situations can be depressing and they can do things about it, versus they're just people who can't pull themselves out of bed.
I think that's actually a really toxic mindset to have. because my understanding is that if you're struggling, you need help. And if you're depressed, it doesn't really matter whether it was triggered and it's situational or if it's chemical, because it still needs, support networks, for instance, is a great example. Care plans, routine is a great care, self-care device. All of these things are really important, whether your situation is depressing or whether you are depressed. And although there may be some differences between those things, especially when it comes to treatment, they both need treating.
Oh, and I never meant to imply that they didn't deserve treatment. I just meant that
Yeah,
when
sorry.
you are chemically depressed versus when you are like situationally depressed, seeing the pattern is where someone who is chemically depressed may never see it coming and they are just depressed, versus when you have a positional, something that you can change, sometimes it's easier to catch, like, oh, I'm going down this road.
Mm.
And so I think regardless, it's, depression, whether it sets on instantly or instantaneously, versus if something is happening in your life that you can kind of get in front of to prevent the episode. It's just a matter of how you get there.
Yeah, it's difficult because, like, for me, depression's never really been very one day spontaneous. Like, sure, I've had like mood swings and stuff like that where it will be like more clustered, my mood is more clustered together.
Mm-hmm.
But because of what I've got going on, I tend to find that I spiral. So I
Mm-hmm.
spiral into my depressions and I spiral into my manics, which
Mm-hmm.
is obviously my converse state. Um, and so even if there's no necessary trigger, even if it's not situational and it's purely just a chemical thing, I am able normally to monitor my mood slip at least from a day where I was feeling 0 or 1
Mm-hmm.
to feeling, -5. Because on my scale, it's +5 and -5.
Mm-hmm.
0 being healthy.
All right.
So you feel like in general you go, like, if you started at a 5, you might go 5, 3, 1, and then into your negative, you spiral in that way. Is that what you mean?
Well, 0 is actually the health and the normality, and then 5 plus 5 would actually be manic state.
Okay.
And -5
Yeah,
would be the depressive, right?
the depressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I see. I had that in my head when you said it, but I wanted to be sure. Thank you. And yeah, this is. I guess that's kind of like the creeping terror of depression in general, is because, like, we can all say we have these things, but we all also understand, like, intrinsically that it's not just these things. Like, yeah, these things kind of have an effect, but there's this underlying thing that we can't control, understand, or, like, manifest, I guess, in a real way that allows us, that, or at least I'll speak for myself, to have any amount of control over the depth, or for me it's the speed at which I spiral. Sometimes I can catch, like, I guess, like a slow wave down, and like and I don't go as far, but there are times when I might as well just be a drill bit. I'm spiraling so fast downwards, so hard, that I get so deep so fast that it takes days to pull me out sometimes. Like, my wife is amazing. She's not like she can, like, see it before it happens. She's like, for all of her, like, empathy and her intuitiveness, which are top notch, it's just like you guys said, it can be as fickle as a switch. You know what I mean? There is no time or day or rhyme or reason. And she's gotten to the point where she understands it, but a lot of people, they see somebody who's depressed or just depressed, and they think only the negative, worst things about themselves about that person. Like, they're lazy, they don't want to do it, they just don't have the motivation, they want somebody else to do it for them, they're entitled, blah, blah, blah. All these monikers and and names that come up for people who are just literally doing everything they can to put one foot in front of the other. You know what I mean? And it's not, and I'll say a strong 80 to 90% of the time, people don't want to be depressed, but there are wackadoos in the world, so I got to leave room for them. You know what I mean? Like some people like feeling depressed. Like that's, they wallow and they find that spot, and you know, it's just, and it sucks because people, I've known a few people who just like to be there, like to be in the worst part of who they are, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
I've met a few of those. I know those types of people, but they, you know, it's also one of those situations where those kind of people, as much as you can help them, you have to let them help themselves as well, and until they're ready to, there's not a whole lot, you know, that can't drag them into it.
Yeah, and that's super true. And it's, I don't want to say it's the shitty part, because that's the part that really helps people. That's the part that really, like, it's finding a way to facilitate them helping themselves and not being helped is so, in my opinion, and obviously Sabi's, is so key to that pulling yourself out of a spiral, or even slowing it down until you can find your own way out, or what have you. Like, before you said with your compassion fatigue that you but a lot of times it's people outside of yourself that are like, hey, you all right? You know what I mean? And I'll speak for myself. You know what I mean? I don't generally have that. Like, we talk almost daily while we play video games, but like I'm like half manic because I don't have any adult humans to talk to. You know what I mean? So by the time I'm talking to an adult human, I might as well be 3 years old. You know what I mean? I'm just excited and happy and like a fucking puppy dog.
Someone's talking to me.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah. Shout out to Stoney in the chat. It is a trippy background.
It is a trippy. Whoa, bro.
Yeah, right? I like it.
So yeah, I think with regard to your original question, and in regard to whether or not you can actually see yourself going that direction, I think it really depends on what is, how do you say, you know, what is driving the cause.
Yeah,
that's fair. All right. We're going to jump to the next part. This is our first one, so it might not be as fluid as they will be later on. So please bear with me. And I need everybody to see my dope-ass doctoring pen right here. It's a spinal cord. And it's cooler. It's cooler than your pen. I want you all to know that. There you go. All right.
Right.
What would you say are some of like the key effects you have to yourself, or I guess affect, really, because I was gonna mention the seasonal affect disorder and how large a role that plays in not just the depressive nature of an individual, but the community and area that they live in as well. Because
it's an interesting one.
Well, that's kind of a thing though. Like people, they say people are happier in Los Angeles. Well, yeah, that's because you're like right under the sun's nuts. Like you get all the vitamin D in the world, and as opposed to like where I used to live in Binghamton, we're literally surrounded by hills. We're in the lowest valley. We get no fucking sun, and everybody there is a piece of shit because they're so fucking depressed all the time. You know what I mean? And there's not enough like focus, and not that like anything can be done. And I'm not saying artificial sunbeams. No, but that has to be a constant consideration. Like where you live matters, and the weather you have not only triggers but contributes to your depression. Like if you're already like chronically depressed, a severe lack of vitamin D is only going to like exacerbate that, like, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring that up before we moved on to effect, because I just feel like it's not something that's paid attention to enough in like the world of depression. There's all these other, like, you know, triggering effects and like past memories and trauma and all this, that, and the third. But the fact that, you know, you were say born and raised in London or wherever the fuck, you know, I'm not trying to put your government out there. But I hear it's like rainy and gray over there most of the time, and I only imagine that there's not the most vitamin D compared to, we'll say, Los Angeles again. Is that fair?
I think there was something that was really interesting I was reading the other day, which was a study about how gardening seems to prolong life. Because if you're touching green,
Ooh.
and touching green releases endorphins. So, yeah, I can kind of see that one.
Yeah, and that's got to be part of it, because there's an intrinsic connection to the earth that we have as people, as just as human beings on this planet, and being in touch with the earth, like going out and what the fuck do they call forest bathing?
Forest. Interesting.
Like, I usually call that going for a walk, but that's cool. Whatever you want, you know, you can elevate whatever the fuck you want with whatever happy ass status you want to give it. But it's really just going for a walk in a forest. You know what I mean? And it's because, yeah, not only is the oxygen level just entirely way higher in that little canopy of trees, but being close to nature is essentially like a human-based antidepressant. You know, both. You know what? Why simple it down? Throwing that out there. But
I would say, from my perspective of the just sunlight and seeing sun, there have been places that I've visited in the world that have just said, like, by the way, there's going to be, like, you know, 25% sun this entire week. Make sure to take vitamin D tablets. Like, I've heard that on radios in places that I've been where, like, there's not a whole lot of sun. And that awareness is not shared across the world. And I would say, especially in places like comparisons to Colorado to Minnesota, where I've been, I can tell you just that move alone has, my depression is finer tuned here because I feel like I feel it more often because there's less sun here.
I could see that. I mean, and you tell me all the time you'd go up to like Pikes Peak or whatever.
Yeah,
Garden of the Gods and stuff and all that.
Colorado's like 95% sun. Minnesota's like 45% sun. It's a big difference.
Yeah, no, that's got to be huge. And see, like I was saying, that plays a huge part of it. All right. Now, back to the effect. Like, what effect it has on you? Like, what are the key things? And I don't mean like the clinical answer. I just mean like the personal one. What things are your main I guess attackers of your depression?
Like things that get me out of it, you mean?
No. Things that happen, like for me when I'm really I'll start off to service the example. I get really like hypersexual when I'm depressed and at the same time depersonalized. So it's like I don't. It's like somebody playing a really horny video game. It's just the way to put it.
Okay, sorry. The way you put it was just kind of funny. Go ahead. I didn't mean to laugh at it.
No. It is funny. Like, but it's like somebody playing a really horny video game that, like, I'm not 100% all the time. Like, I don't want to say therefore because I am, but it's more like I'm on autopilot. Like, it's like I know a cookie will make me feel good, so I go to get a cookie. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's and that's one of the key affects for me. Like when I'm in like my really bad places, the depersonalization manifests in a lot of ways. Like I get more into video games like things like that. I get more into like anything that I can step away from reality in, like Final Fantasies, Pokemon, RPGs in general. A good book, that'll definitely do the trick. And I just try not to be whatever that person is, even while I'm like being like sexually active, or even like back in the day when it was incredibly sexually active. I would be thinking about the video games or the book or the thing that I used to pull myself away from reality while I was doing the things to pull my body away from reality. You know what I mean? And I would realize that these are the two steps I take to, or rather the two things that happen when I get depressed. And it's one of the reasons that I notice and I can notice this one, but like I said, it's always on the cusp, on the ring, on the precipice of falling deeper into that depression. Sage? I think Sage fell asleep.
She sounds like she's snoring.
She sounds like she's snoring. Aw, poor thing. It is damn near 1 o'clock her time, so I'm just gonna hit a little button over here. 1 second, everybody. Yeah, it's like 1 o'clock. I'm not trying to be rude to everybody. I don't know how you mute somebody. I've never done it before.
She's snoring hard.
She's getting so tired, that poor thing. I feel so bad. We're on such a time difference. We've been trying to do this for hours.
Aww.
Somebody I won't be like, somebody poke her. But what good's that gonna do? All right. How do you? Does anybody know how to kick somebody off of this bitch? I don't.
You got me. I don't know. It's your hangout. You should be able to do it.
Right, I should technically. Yeah. Nope, that didn't work.
Well.
Well, this took a turn really quick. All right. Well, we have one person that bowed out. How about we get somebody else in here? It's not just Etika. I was planning on doing these well before Etika, but Etika, the way people treated that and things since have really made me step up my game. But yeah.
Is that somebody that's in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm gonna.
She's snoring so hard.
I know. Sage!
Oh.
Didn't even stutter.
No.
All right.
Poor gal.
See. I'm gonna have to send this link out to some people. Anybody want in while I'm here?
I will. Do you want to start another hangout? I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do either. It's unprecedented. I've never been this boring on live. Somebody done fault entirely asleep on me, Jesus. Like, we're trying to have a frank and honest discussion. All of a sudden, just. Oh my God, Sage, you understand when you see this later, because I'm not gonna put this up. Please understand that first and foremost. I'm definitely putting this up. That it's all with love, every bit of it. Love. All right. How do I?
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
This is not the way I wanted any of this to go. All right. Well. It's hard with I don't. Okay, who knows how to use Hangouts and how to mute somebody in Hangouts? I know y'all know how to do it. Somebody here has to know how.
I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah, how do you... Thank you. And I mean this with love for Sage, obviously.
'Cause I
But
don't think she wants
she
anybody.
passed out. Like, she is fully asleep. And, yeah. Once we, once we get this all figured out here.
Click the arrow, select mute from the menu. It literally just says you can click on her name and select mute.
All right. It says I can click on her name. And select mute. The fuck? No, I can't.
It says, "Hey, from the bottom of the Hangout windows, click the arrow, select the mute from the menu."
I don't have whatever they're telling me I have. Madam. From the bottom of the menu.
And it's like click the down arrow and select mute.
There is no down arrow.
I'm sorry, it's broken.
I'm done with... I'm so mad right now.
I'm so mad right now.
I gotta be like... How am I not able to do this shit?
Can you not kick her out of the chat?
I don't know how to do that either. There's no fucking options.
Well...
Yeah, this is what I get for trying to do anything sometimes. And this is normally where I would spiral very quickly. Because I hate when I try to do things. And this is one of the ones... And I know it. And my wife can see it when it happens too. Motherfucking piece of shit.
Hey, she woke up.
Hey! Good morning, you.
What?
You fell asleep, dearie.
Oh, I didn't fall asleep, man. I've just been mush. I'm so tired.
Oh, no, you 100% fell asleep, snoring and all. And that is 1,000% fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've been trying to figure out how to mute you for like the past 10 minutes.
Mush.
No, it's fine. Go get some sleep, but let's get you out of here so you don't snore in the thing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, we're keeping this up. It's going up as is.
Right in my chair, then.
Yeah, you definitely did.
That's amazing. But also, I'm so sorry.
No. It's fine. She'd been telling me she was tired before we even started, and I was like, "You can do this. You're fine." And she's like, "All right, I can do this." And it turns out I've been wrong before.
I thought I'd do it. I did, but like, man, like, what? Like, fair. Well, I'll catch you later.
Yes, please.
Nice
please
to meet
do.
you. Catch you later.
Catch you later.
Just so sleepy. So sleepy. All right. Well, I guess it's just me and you now.
Okay.
Womp, womp,
Cool with that.
Just the two of us. Until some other people join. Just the two of us. All right, there we go.
Well, to get back
Sage.
to your question with regard to affect, I think one of my biggest, like one of the ways I can really tell I'm going into depression, or I guess like tell that I'm in a depression, is that I get like really body dysmorphic. Like I almost physically cannot look into mirrors because of like the toxic voices that just like run through my head when I see myself. That's how I can like really tell like, holy crap, I'm in a depression.
Yeah, you were mentioning that before we had talked about stuff.
Yeah, like that happens without fail. Like that's it, like a metaphorical like demon of mine. Like when things are really bad or I'm feeling really negative, then Like, if I look in the mirror and I see myself, it's like, you're a disgusting pig. And that's like the nice things that my brain will say to me.
I definitely get that. Like, I won't say as much because I won't call it like a constant thing, but I'm at the heaviest I've been in a really long time. So, like, at least I don't want to make a comparative statement because even if I did, yours is like 1,000 times worse. And this is just me trying to commiserate, I suppose. Like,
Right.
but at sometimes, and I'm an adult, and I know this isn't how anything works, but I'm like, what if I just cut myself and squeeze the fat out? All right, like
Yeah. No, I get it.
and like that's actually a really horrifically gruesome thought to have that probably is so fucking normal by this point. You know what I mean? Like the idea that if I just, disfigure the shit out of myself, I'll be beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll be the beauty they want me to have, I guess is a better way to put that too.
I guess for me it's more like I don't think about changing myself as much as like I just talk bad about myself, and like I will and it's not just like my body figure, like I'm a little overweight, but like my figure overall, but also like I will nitpick at like microscopic things on my body that other people don't see. They're like magnified. That's why I almost lean on it and call it a dysmorphia, because the things that are subtle to basically everyone else that I've ever met in my life who's like, I don't see that about you. Like, those are the things I see. And like I will like freak out about the fact that I'm like balding on the top of my head, but I'm not. Like, that's what I mean.
All right. And that's like that's like almost borderline schizophrenia, you know what I mean? Like to be affected by something that isn't there, you know what I mean?
It's not that it's not there. Like I can see the top of my skull.
Oh.
Like, and that's the dysmorphia. Like when you can see things that you think you shouldn't be seeing, and then it magnifies itself by like tenfold.
All right.
So I can have like I can say I have like 3 or 4 pimples on my face, but then like I see them as like half my face, and I don't mean like literally.
No, I definitely get that one.
I would just say that I have fucking pimples everywhere. Excuse my language, but that's what I mean. Is like I would see 4 and I'd see 1,000,000. Like it would be no different to me.
Fair enough. Yeah, I will like. Yeah, my body image has never been great, but it's also never been a concern. Like I have the privilege, like the male privilege of not being judged on my body as much. You know what I mean? And I definitely know that, and kind of like respect the fact that I'm super grateful for it, because let's just be honest, if dudes were judged on their bodies the same way women were, it like I would, you know what I mean? Like I'm down here 3 bills. I'm giganimous.
I would say I think that it's there. I just don't think that it's as prevalent. Yeah, like I don't think there's ever been like a mom bod and it had that been like cool. Like there's no. Like there are people who have like, normalized stretch marks and birthmarks from having labor, but people still wouldn't call it beautiful. Like the rare few would, but there would definitely be a higher majority of people judging a woman's mom body than like there was that run or phase of time, and it may still be a thing where people are like into the dad bod. I just don't feel like that happens as much for women.
That's fair. Like the thing, it's because so much of society wants there to be more to men than their looks, but they still don't want there to be more to women. You know what I mean? Like Twitter itself is, I find it surprising a lot of times, like even as a dude, like I don't know how yeah, if you I don't know how to put this. Yeah, I'm just gonna move on because I can't find the words for it.
Okay.
But so we're in effect, and I talked about and I'm gonna speak about my I guess on my wife's behalf because she was supposed to be involved in this, but life isn't that simple. She gets what the exact opposite of me. She gets a hyposexual, which means she just doesn't. Sex doesn't exist. She at all. She's so focused on everything else that needs to be done. It's not a thing, and it's absolutely this huge chunk of our relationship that we work around because I'm often depressed and so is she, and we sync up in a lot of ways, but when we're depressed we are very opposite people, you know what I mean? And because of that, when we have to not only like identify each other and ourselves, but we have to, how do I put this? We have to help the other in spite of ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we
find
both
some sort of compromise.
Yeah, and we have to each we're not helping neither one of us are helping ourselves. We're helping the other, and in that we're helping ourselves. It's really cyclical and it can seem kind of fucked up, but it works. You know what I mean? We pull each other up through whatever means, and it may seem weird to pull somebody up while you yourself don't have solid footing, but it's kind of like going back to back up a hill or up a pit. You know what I mean? Like it's two people going back to back and their feet are, pressed against the wall so they can climb up. It's not necessarily like anything deeper than that, really. It's just
trying to get out of it.
Yeah, just two people trying to get out of like this slippery, muddy pit that they can't climb up alone. And to have somebody involved in your life that is willing to kind of, I don't want to say sacrifice themselves because that doesn't seem right, but it does kind of fit, like sacrifice the idea of putting herself first to put me first while I do the same. You know what I mean? It's not like it would just be a blind action. It's not like, I just do this and I get nothing from it. Like that would be horrible. We wouldn't have lasted as long as we did. Like a relationship like that, like can't really reach the depth that a relationship should if one person can't trust the other to do the exact same thing that they need. You know what I mean? Especially if they're already doing it.
Yeah, I can get that perspective. Kind of. Sean and I have, similar, like, I wouldn't say like exactly similar situation, but in the same sense, we have to find somewhere in the middle. And if we didn't, this wouldn't have lasted,
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that, even as codependent as that sounds, it can really benefit both people. Because I feel like when Sean and I were younger, by far and away, we were very codependent. And in doing so, we've both become more and more independent, which has been beneficial. And I'm not saying that would work for everyone. Codependency isn't a great thing. But
well, see, and this is where we're going to have to differ because there's a level of codependency where it's just two people helping one another who have no play, who feel, even if it's not true, who feel that they have no place to turn but the other person. For whatever reason, like, codependency it has such a negative ring to it. You know what I mean? Like, people hear codependent and they're like, oh, that's fucking horrible. And I'm like, yeah, but you and this person do everything every day. And you're like, well, no, that's just my this or that. And it's like, no, you still have codependency. It's just you label it differently. Like the idea
Right.
that humans aren't codependent on one another in general as a way of life is absolutely ridiculous. We're dependent on our boss to pay us. We're dependent on the grocery store to have food. We're dependent on so many different things interconnected through humanity and just the structure of our social network that, like, the idea is boggling to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. I get like I guess when I say codependency, and I'm not using it as a
I just use
negative
that as a
term.
jumping off point. I know it's not, because I
Yeah.
know you guys, but I just wanted
Like
to emphasize that.
I would say that there is toxic codependency, but there is like you can't do codependency, like you can't do a relationship without like finding somewhere to depend on the other person. Like that's just a relationship. Like, and so that, if you're still capable of doing your life and living your life and then depending on that other person to help you, that's one thing. But if you are solely dependent on another person, then you're crossing that line into toxicity. But I mean, that doesn't sound like that's what you're talking about.
No, 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 no. There is, like, if you can't do anything without the other person. Like, I was gonna do something, but you weren't there, and it's something like, I don't even want to say it's like, I don't want to say like go to the store, like, just because sometimes I don't feel like walking to the store alone or some shit like that. But
Hmm.
it's when it's like every time, and there's no time where you're not together, and they need you,
Yeah.
and their excuse for not doing things becomes like you and this and this and that, and they kind of put their stuff onto you. That's when
Hmm.
things like really become an issue.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's very true. I do. So, with regard to like, what do you do? Like, so as I said, we kind of have a similar situation. Like, you when you're depressed, you get very hypersexual, and Beth gets very hyposexual, and neither one of you want to. I mean, at some point, neither one of you want to help each other because one wants something the other one doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, where do you find your middle ground? Like, how do you go about that?
Oh, I beat my dick like it owes me money.
Oh,
that's just that's the long and short of it. Like, it's her body. She has 100% say in what happens
well,
to it.
that's not what I
So
meant.
so it, like, it's just, that's the long and short of it. Like,
No,
it
I mean,
sucks.
like, what? But
We
what kind of like compromises do you make for like on her end of things? Like, where is like that is your compromise, but where is like her compromise of things?
On this particular subject, there isn't much compromise, if I'm being honest. Like, because it's sex is such a touchy thing, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I have pretty strong beliefs. Like, I'm very much, like I said, it's her body 100%, and that just sucks. I gotta go do my thing. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. But I mean, what am I gonna do? Rape them? Like,
No,
that's fucking
that's not.
horrible. Like,
No, that's not the option. But
exactly.
I guess what I mean. So here, I'll give you an example. So a friend of mine they were going through a similar situation. Both were one was wanting it more and needing to feel wanted and just wasn't getting that from their
Mm-hmm.
partner. And it caused a lot of fights. They were going round and round about it. And then at some point, like, you take this for what you will,
Mm-hmm.
the wife was just like, well, I want to keep my relationship. I want to, I want to keep us together. I want to keep the kids together. And so for this, I will give up 2 days of sex a day and see if that improves his mood. And so she did, and it did. So she's like, well, I'm just going to fucking concede then because I want our quality of life to be better. So here I am basically giving up sex so that we can have a better quality of life. And so that was kind of what I was wondering is like, do other people make those kind of concessions and have they communicated those kinds of things?
And I think what you said last is kind of like the big main point. it's a matter of communication. Like I can't I can't tell you how it would work with anybody else, but when me and my wife have any real problem, one of the things that's kind of kept us is the fact that we communicate. And I imagine that any couple that's been more than like 7 years in this day and age has an amazing set of communication skills. You know, an ability to be open and honest with the other. So I think that's really what it comes down to, is the conversations that you have that lead to it. Because some people get to that point and they're like, all right, I don't want to change anything. I don't want to lose the dynamic. You know, this is the life that I want, even if chemically I can't, you know, be everything you need. So why don't you just, you know, pay for a mouth hug every now and again? Or, you know, find, you know, just use Tinder and get some, you know, fucking, you know what I mean? Something like that. Get that urge out, whatever. Like, it's not like you'd love this person, da-da-da-da-da. You know, set up boundaries and rules, and because polyamory is so fucking sticky, icky anyway. And, and
I've
yeah,
definitely
like,
I've known friends in veterinary school that did that, that did like the polyamorous thing, because as a veterinary student, you have zero time, but you want to be in a relationship. I've seen that happen.
yeah, and that just, I have my own take on it, because there's the very male part of me that's like, yes, bring on the ladies. You know what I mean? But that's literally only half of the equation. There has to be the other half where your lady's like, all right, bring on the D's. You know what I mean? Like, there's equal parts in this, and that's where people usually get hung up. They're like, there's like super okay with the idea of like Melissa coming over for a threesome. You know what I mean? But when I don't know who's in the chat. When fucking Randall comes over and he's like, hey, let me get up in this. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But it can't be. You know what I mean? Like, it can't be. This is her, like, they can do whatever the fuck they want because that's the parameters of the relationship. And shit just gets so inky because, A, men are children. Like, in a very real way, we like our toys to stay our own. No matter if we like them or not. You know what I mean? And it's kind of one of the worst parts about us is, like, it's what it is.
So you're saying you're all the same.
Probably to no small extent. Yeah, we're all a bit fucking nuts. Like that's true. But in this case, like to give it back, that's for each relationship to decide, because when one person is like hyposexual because of depression, life, job, what have you, it's not something they can control. It's not something they want. It's not something that they can do a lot about even. Like
Right.
I have friends who have taken those fucking, oh my God. Okay, I can't tell their story because it's theirs. But let's just say there was over-the-counter truck stop, like, sex pills and they still didn't work right.
Oh.
I'll tell you later. We'll play some Apex or something, but it's a chemical thing that stops things from happening no matter what happens. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's the part that people don't get, and that's a shitty thing. And all right, I'm gonna go to identifiers and tendencies, things we do while we're depressed to fight our depression. For me, it's always been video games. Like, as long as I've been free, I guess is the way to put it. Like, I've played video games, like, when I was depressed, or, like, especially, like, I didn't realize it at the time because you don't like to think anything's wrong with you. But, like, I would use video games to avoid situations I was just, like, crazy anxious about. Like, and it, like, yeah, and I would just throw myself in, and it would just be this all-consuming force that I wasn't even necessarily, like, wanting to do that so much as it was something I did because of something else. You know what I mean? And, like, I love video games, don't get me wrong, so it was it's like your brain's really great at tricking you into doing things you want to do, for even if the reasoning behind it isn't what you think it is, because the brain's, you know, designed to protect you.
Right.
And yeah, and it's just, yeah, and like I've had people like walk in front of TVs and like talk to me while I'm playing video games, and I don't even fucking notice. Like that's how like into that shit I get. And and yeah, it was just insane.
Yeah, I would say that I definitely play more video games when I'm in a depressive spell. Um, and it is like like entirely like a dissociative thing. Like you don't want to be attached to whatever you're feeling, and so you put yourself in the fantasy world. And I think I've done that with books before, like anything to remove me from my situation. Video games, music, and I think in those situations, depending on if it's something that really like lifts my spirits, then I see it as helpful. But I feel like all of them can be very toxic because I have the tendency to hyper prioritize, I guess you could call it, where like that's all I do. And recently it's been video games, but it's been other things where it's like that's all I do and you never do anything else. And I think when it's like that, you're not living your life, and so that's when it really becomes more toxic. But yeah, I would say dissociative patterns is probably like my go-to. Anything that allows me to disconnect.
And that's super fair. For me, I would definitely say writing, like, because little bit of backstory. Some long time ago, when the internet was still young and it sounded like a bunch of pigs fucking a fax machine, we met through what the fuck, message board, and yeah, blah 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 blah. Fast forward till now, I still do them, because writing is one of those things that has always been an antidepressant for me. I will say that doing this like YouTube and Twitch stuff has actually helped me quite a bit as well. Like it's not what I thought it was going to be. I was when I got into it, I was really prepared for, well, just, you know how my brain works. I was prepared for the ugliest, you know what I mean? I was just prepared for the worst. And the truth is, YouTube's done a lot to help pull me out of like a really like long depression. Like I'm not out of it yet, and that's fine. That's on me. That's my journey. But the fact that I know, like, I kind of have a group of people that I can talk to, or a group of people who just I can talk with anime about and forget about stupid shit. I could go in and start an anime fight in half a second by typing some shit I don't even mean. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
And it'll all be in fun and good spirits, and no matter what language is used, it's still like a fun, friendly environment. And yeah, and I think that's kind of what I used to get from my writing. And to get specific, in 2015, a lot of people died. I had it was altogether like 15 people died that year.
What?
Yeah, it left me with like nothing of my past anymore. Like all the people that I came up with in the homes, like a lot of like the caseworkers who were nice, some of the foster, like it was just a lot of, like, it was, I'm not gonna lie when I say I felt targeted, because I couldn't go a month without somebody who I guess I don't want to say had meant, because that puts it in a past tense, but who was incredibly important to my like development and eventual success as a person. And, you know, just even if it's just getting me to the point where I am now. And in that time, like they died. Like it was just overdoses, car accidents, various other, you know, things. And I was just, I couldn't deal with it. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. I just emotionally couldn't be in the space where I had to deal with it. And I worked this third shift job, and luckily for all my luck, I was able to write pretty much all night for my entire job, and that's what I did. I was on a message board. It's called Fallen Blades, just to give the shout out. It's a ninja based thing, but I threw myself into one character, and like for a year I basically just was this entire other character, and I didn't my entire life revolved around what they were going to do, how they were going to do it, blah 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 blah. That was it, because I just couldn't deal with, I guess in all honesty, the person that I was at the time, the things I was going through, the life that was happening around me. And I think that's something that people, that it has to happen to more than just me. I'm not fucking special. Like, life can be too much. Like, it's just insane. I literally have, like, I can name on like before YouTube and like all the people there, and I don't mean to insult anybody who watches this, but like there's like 5 people on my hand that I like really like have in my life on a daily basis, and it's, a person needs more than that, because of that, only one of them, because I don't count my son because that's not fair, but only like one of them is here. You know what I mean? And the rest of them are scattered across the country and globe. So it's like, what the fuck as a person to do? And that's one of my identifiers, is when I know I can't, is how deep I get into my writing. And sometimes I don't notice. And like you said, sometimes you have to have people tell you that you're like running on your like compassion fatigue or whatever. Like Beth will come up to me and be like, "You've been spending a lot of time writing." You know what I mean? For her, she really means, I need some help cleaning the house. Can you fucking do some shit? But and for me, that's one of the ways that like she helps me, because she also knows that when I write, it's because I'm depressed. Like, she knows, and it serves a dual purpose, because it's to get my ass in gear and let remind me that I got shit in the real world that I still need to do. And
yeah,
and yeah.
I mean, it's good that you at least have one. I feel like having a support system of any kind is paramount to continuing to grow as a person, because having anybody to springboard off of, or kind of throw shit back at you when you're doing whatever it is you're doing or whatever you're going through, it's really important. And even on the like shittiest of days, even if they're not within your proximity, if they're reachable and speak toable, like that makes them part of your support system. And I think the hardest part with a lot of depression is that even if you're, regardless of what your support system is, when you're in a certain position in your depression, you don't want to reach out to people. And whether that's because you're ashamed of where you're at in your head, or if you're scared of what they will think, or what have you, like, I think depression makes it 1,000 times harder to reach out and be like, hey, I'm having a problem. Like, it's easier to internalize and not cope with it, at least from what I've experienced in my depression. Like, I'll sit and wallow for like 3 or 4 days in my depression before I finally be like, hey, I have something going on with me, or I need to talk to somebody,
Definitely. And that's kind of one of my things too, is I don't...
Hello,
can you hear me? 1 second. Hello?
what the heck? Hello,
Can you hear me? It's saying hello? Wait. It might be... Where is it? Oh,
yeah.
you dropped. No, you're still here.
I'm still here. It just like went dead. I don't know what happened. Am I still there?
No, it says you're out of the thing, but I can
But
still
what?
hear you, which is just bananas.
What has happened?
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Well, say something. Okay, we're still good. We're still going. We're still live. So
Okay, where did I leave off?
I'll be honest, you kicked me out of my brain with all this happenstances.
Just being able to reach out to people.
Yes,
Like
distance not mattering, essentially.
well, that, and also just when you're somebody with depression, the actual act of reaching out to people can be exhausting.
Yo, that's the part that people don't get. They're like, you can just reach out, you know what I mean? And it's like, you don't seem to understand how actually hard that is. It's huge. And that's why I want to give credit to Dustin Reacts, because he's on a couple of occasions just like reached out to me to see if I'm okay after I've been gone for a little while. Like because he doesn't know that I'm like, you know, I ebb and flow, you know what I mean? Like they're all kind of new to me and stuff like that. So yeah, and he reached out, and it was like, and stuff like that fucking helps. Like it makes us, I'll speak for myself, it makes me feel like somebody wants me to be more involved. Like it seems, I don't know, part of it seems childish, and the idea behind it has been so like stigmatized, but like what is so wrong with the idea that somebody, like, you know, back in the day when I was a kid, okay, not me, but other people's lives, you could go up to your friend's house, knock on their door, and be like, is such and such home? And you know what I mean? And then you and 15 kids would run fucking neighborhood like Stranger Things. You know what I mean? And there isn't that anymore. Like everybody's so accessible that they just figure, oh, if they're not getting a hold of me, they don't want anything. You know what I mean? And social media has a big part of that too, but also the constructs that we allow our like social entities to take. Like we're so compassionless in a very real way that like for the most time we think other, like, oh, they're not getting a hold of us, so fuck them. You know what I mean? And it usually has nothing to do with them not wanting to get a hold of you or this, that, and the third. Like, I'll speak on this. Apex has a call a friend function, and I abuse the shit out of that. Like, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's not like with my friend Paul. He sometimes it's just to let him know that I want him around. You know what I mean? I don't need him to play the game, but sometimes it just helps to know that somebody wants you to play the game with them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's a part of it. But people don't think like that. They have any manner of other thoughts that I can't really fathom right now.
Right. Yeah, and I think sometimes when you're depressed, especially, like you kind of start to well, I won't say you. I'll say me. Like I tend to segregate myself without really noticing that that's what I'm doing, and then I will turn around and I will say like, oh, nobody wants to be around me. No one's inviting me anywhere. But on that same front, I'm like not putting myself out there, and it was part of the reason that like when I was younger and we would go to like family reunions, I felt like no one wanted to be around me because they just wouldn't include me. And then I would do like self-depreciating or
Deprecating.
I don't know.
Self-defecating humor. Mm-hmm.
Well, that, but also like I would self-depreciate myself. So like I would say like, oh, I'll put myself in this position and see if I am worth value to these people.
Now, see, that I understand too, because like coming out of the homes and stuff, you learn a lot about like human nature, and for a while I guess to put it lightly, we'll say I was an aggressive person. And because that's what I know, and I guess my takeaway from that is people do what they know, and a lot of times it's not always right.
Right.
And that's really what I got. And I think, I don't know, depression is this ugly, ugly thing. And, man, I don't know. I've said it before. It's like tar or molasses or something you can't, it's not something you could even shake off. People Like, I'll quote Dustin Reacts again because we've had a conversation about this and what he does to help with his depression. He's like, I just take a nap, I go to bed, I wake up not depressed, and I'm like, you lucky motherfucker. Like, that is not how it works for me.
Yeah, I don't know that I can sleep off my depression.
I do get like depression naps when like you've just been depressed for like so long your body can't like function and you're just like, I'm gonna close my eyes now.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's beyond super real. So
I definitely experienced those too. Where you just your body's just like, and now we're tired. We're gonna be tired all day long.
And for me, having a fucking 2-year-old who basically has the superstar from Mario activated 24/7, just
So
it's the truth.
I have go ahead.
Well, I'm just yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I had a question for you with regard to that. So they talk about like, oh, and now I just lost the term. Basically, like, when women fall into a depression, like post-labor, postpartum depression.
Yeah,
and
that affects men too. For the record,
that's what.
That affects men too.
That's what I mean. Is like, so I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was like, you have wild dreams that like you don't, or like thoughts that run through your head that you would never do, but they're still there, and like terrible things. And I've read on it before, like people have like thoughts of like throwing their children downstairs or drowning them in tubs, and like some women obviously have acted on them and things like that have happened, but like what is that like? What does that even look like in a man? I feel like I don't even know that I've read anything about it or had it even approached.
I don't think I know, because none of my like spiraling, no matter, even if he's the exact cause of it, right. Nothing in me wants to harm him. Like I don't right. even there's no ideation about it or anything like that. Like, it's just, like, but then again, my life, so when I say this is the first thing, like, I really loved unconditionally, like, so it's, I'm not the best thing on that, you know what I mean? But I can definitely understand, for me, it's a sense of, I want to say, meltiness. Like, nothing is, like, solid, everything is fluid. Like, time, days, months, what happened in the last 4 fucking seconds, like everything is so like flux, and people talk about like a schedule and da 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 da, but like babies don't give no fucks about no schedule. Like I'm sorry, but they don't. Like no. I don't know how to do it. Like he can't have the breeze ruffle the shades without going bananas about going outside. You know what I mean? So I spend a lot of time with him running outside. and and even like and here's the thing. You know this, like I don't like to be touched and stuff like that, and my son's no different. No matter how much I love him, like when he crawls all over me and pulls on my face and da 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 da, I don't have those like, oh my god, my baby, like kind of reactions. I'm like, get the little fucker away from me. You know what I mean? And I can't help it. I can't fucking help it. Like, I never want to hurt him, but I do want to put him away from me to make him stop doing what he's doing. Not violently, not in such a fashion that he would be hurt, but just like, you know, you know what I mean? And that's so like.
So then, like, what about like? Have you experienced any of that like male, like, I guess you can't say it postpartum, but like
no, it's still the same thing, because
it's
this huge shift, and like I said, I wouldn't know. Like I'm depressed like 300 days a year. Like that's just all there is. Like it's the life I know. It's I'm highly functioning, I guess, but I think. Sorry, repeat the question one more time.
Well, just like what's the experience been like depressive wise, like the shift between being,
Uh,
a couple with no kid to a couple with a kid, like the depression. Like
Honestly,
clearly you're saying men have it, but my understanding is that you don't have a ton of experience like with it in that same sense. So I'm just trying to get like where is your perspective with regard to like you went from a couple with no kid to a couple
oh,
with a kid, and where
honestly,
does that depression
oh, all right.
fall?
Honestly, for me, that's never really been the issue. Like, um, before we had a kid, or like our to let everybody in, our son was like a conversation. We had to do math. We had to figure out when the best times were. Like we this was like some heavy ass planning, and I think
Hmm.
like having that level of like awareness and like foreknowledge of what you're going into helps, because
Hmm.
we're like very communicative about it, and that's one of the things. Like, we're very communicative as a couple, so if there's a problem, we talk about it. But as far as like the depression because of the baby, it mostly stems from the fact that I'm doing something that I feel is insurmountable, and I'm doing
Hmm.
it alone, and I'm failing. Like, straight up and down. Like, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't feel like I'm a failure as a father, no matter how hard I try. You know what I mean? And it's there's 1,000 reasons why I'm not, but none of them
Right,
matter compared to the one or two that seem to ink that direction. You know what I
right.
mean? So, and this is where like the emotional and mental like disconnect comes in play, because like I said, intellectually I understand there's thousands of reasons that, I'm a great father, and toot toot mountain horn. But there are some reasons that I'm not that great a dad. You know what I mean? Like, it's just as a person I could be better. Nobody's perfect,
Right.
and it's those are the things I that become monolithic. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
these things that are insurmountable, impassable, if you will, and I guess without Okanishin I wouldn't have those. So yeah, I guess for me the postpartum part comes from that,
Okay.
and for me it's you know me, so like I'm not. People wouldn't describe me as a person who's afraid a lot.
Right. Right.
And but for the first time in my life I'm afraid. I'm afraid, like genuinely afraid, and it's not for myself, but it's for him, and it's I know a lot of it is because I have nothing to, I have, this is my first son. It's, the first love like this that I have, so all the negative things like that in my life or that I see, I and don't want to happen to him, I imagine like vividly, and I understand intellectually that, yeah, walking to the store is probably not gonna lead to some crazy shit that happens. You know what I mean? But there's this
Hmm.
emotional disconnect where, is it worth the risk? You know what I mean? Like, let's do this thing instead of that thing because of this, and da 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 da. And like Sean said it the other night, he was spot on the nose. He was like, "Dude, you need to get out more." Like, he was just nail on the head with that, because for me, my life has become so focused around my son that, like, I didn't have a sense of self. Like, I've only, like, it took me a year to do this YouTube stuff because I was just so lost in the baby and in being whatever he needed, that who I was so secondary, or tertiary isn't even the word. I was just not a priority to myself. And YouTube is like, remember when I used to do like my events and stuff like that? Like, you saw the pictures on YouTube and shit,
Hmm.
or YouTube, Facebook, and blah blah blah. Well, I would do that, and the reason I did those things is because, like, I was really good at it, and money helps, but it got me in like hyper social situations, which I love, and I'm very much that social butterfly kind of guy, and with not only do we, where we live, we have nobody, no support system of any kind, no friends, no nothing. So all of our friends are like 3-4 hours away. You know what I mean? For her, it's like 3, 4, 6, 8. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy how far people are away. And on occasion they visit, but you can't, like, how much can you really hold it against somebody for not coming to see you? When you're like literally like you got to plan your entire day or weekend around it, you know what I mean? Like you can't, but you blame. I'm speaking for myself, obviously, but you blame everybody for not being around because you need somebody, and in that blame, comes like the spiraling and the depression, and you get I guess a good follow up to that is like you get depressed being angry at other people for not being there, and it just accentuates the loneliness that you feel for being with this lump of meat and flesh that you love that can't do anything.
It can't do anything. That's a true statement. Sorry, I'm eating popcorn. I hope it's not coming across the YouTube channel very loudly.
No, that's fine.
Okay. I don't know. I think that's one of my, like, I have a lot of fears around children, but specifically of having my own, like that, among other things, like the isolation that I've seen my friends go through. Like, it is 100% life changing, and you never sleep for like the first whatever that you have the kid. And
I was actually lucky because I never sleep anyway. So
right, but that's what I mean is like you just never sleep, and like your life is now no longer just your life. It's this other person's life, like that. You have that kid, and then if you intend to do right by that kid, there's not something that you're going to sacrifice.
yeah.
And I'm inherently selfish in that regard. Like I spent. From my perspective, I spent the first 8 years of my life being a kid, and then after that I was raising my parents because neither one of them were adult enough to care for themselves after a point. And after I got out from under both of them, I never wanted to have a dependent again.
And see, that's really fair. And a lot of it comes down to, and I like the fact that you said it, like selfishness. And I don't want that to seem like it's a negative. Like, but people make excuses for their selfishness, and in hiding from their honesty doesn't help their thing. But that's a topic for something else. I'm gonna write that down. Actually, where'd my spinal pen go? All right, moving on. All right. What time is it? 8:30. All right. We're going to close this up. We got about another half an hour. So we're going to talk about things that help us come out of our depression. Things we do that help combat that devil. And for me, chocolate chip cookies.
Chocolate chip cookies.
Like, there's something about, I don't know what it is, but I love them. Like, I have problems with food anyway. Like, you already know this. I'll get into this later. But food has a lot of sway in my life. And if I'm eating something that makes me happy, I generally feel better. Like, and not just a little bit, but, like, in ways that, like, Beth is like fucking hell. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Like, and it's, I won't even say I understand the process. But yeah. And I think another way that I fight my depression is I try to elevate everybody around me by like making their mood better by, just being that funny guy through the situation. And I've always done that. That's been a defense mechanism and a depressionary symptom. So yeah. And actually, yeah, you know what? Jay, I got you. Text me on Twitter or Discord, so I'll get your thing to come up, and I'll send you the link. We're on the just so you know, we're on the last half hour, but I'll let you get your guest spot to speak in. What were we talking about? Sorry, kicked me out of my brain.
We were talking about things that get us out of our depressions.
And like I said, a lot of it for me is food. My whole mood, like I can be in absolute pitch black, like just depression, and a good meal that like surprises me or is something that I really like will just fucking flick a switch, and that's not good because I know it and I use it. You know what I mean? Like that's
right.
And that's just the long and short of it.
Man, I wish food got me out of my depressions. I'm like the inverse, like food, certain foods, like if I eat them, I'm like, now I'm just an even fatter blob of garbage. Like that's...
In a half an hour. It's 8:30.
That's just literally what happens. Like some food I will eat will actually make my depression worse.
Come here. Well, I got him.
Sal?
Yeah, I'm here. I just wanted to do this because this is one of, as much as him crawling like on my face triggers a lot of stuff. I will admit that while a lot of stuff swirls around him with my depression, he is just as much there you go, buddy. An antidepressant as anything else, and I don't want that to be understated. Oops. Nope, he went through Twitter. God damn it. Theo being a dingus.
Get it together.
I know, I gotta. What's up, buddy? Oh. Well, and fuck, pull me back on track.
But again,
yes,
we're talking about things that get us out of our depression, and I was saying that food in general, you said food makes you feel great, and it's like a trigger, like a switch.
Yeah, and that's
for me.
Go.
I was gonna say, for me, like it can be the exact opposite. Like I can eat something, like you give me like a tub of ice cream to make myself feel better, I will eat the whole tub, and then I'll be like, now I just look like, like a giant blob. Now I'm just an even bigger blob than I was before. Like, so it doesn't always go well.
All right.
But I will say that other things that can get me out of it, if I can bring myself to do it, exercise will always be what like pulls me out of it. Even if I just go on like a 30-minute walk, like it can really drag me out of a hole. And like adventuring, like and that's another thing, like I have to get past the doorway. Like that's the problem. Like if I can go on an adventure, like even if it's just like wandering around downtown and not knowing what I'm going to get into, or like finding some like new supermarket to go to and like checking out like a Chinese market or something like that, like finding something new and different can always kind of help me turn around. But I feel like there are times when I have depression that those things are fleeting. Like I'll feel good while it's happening, and then I get home and it's like my depression is waiting on the couch for me. Like, hey, you left.
What's up, guys?
There we go. And I definitely 100% feel that. Like I don't, and that's something I don't do enough. That I basically my whole life used to be an adventure. You know what I mean? Like I couch surfed for like years at a time and shit like that. You know what I mean? So. Mm-hmm. And now I live a very, we'll say, sedentary lifestyle. You know what I mean? Especially comparatively. You know what I mean? And part of it is the fact that for the first time in my life, I have a roof that's like super secure. I have food. I'm safe. I don't have to worry about like being hurt, violence, and shit like that. Like I'm just in a much better place than I've ever been. And I've been so focused my entire life on just surviving, just getting food, finding a place to sleep, that I didn't have time to be depressed, quote unquote. You know what I mean? And now that I do, it's hitting me like a fucking brick, like a building made out of bricks. Like some would say, building. Like a brick shithouse. But yeah, and that's kind of where that is for me. Jay, you got some things you want to throw in? You got some anecdotal talking?
So like, it depends. Like, what's our focus right now? I don't
It's
want to
just
like go
a
on a wild
broad.
tangent, you know?
It's a broad topic, but I'll give you some stuff to catch up on, like things that you know that like you find yourself before you're depressed. Like you can see yourself sinking into that place, but you're not quite at that place yet. Do you have anything that you find like that? Are you able to do that?
Yeah. For me, it's a little strange. So I would consider myself someone who's come from a position of privilege. You know, my parents paid for school. My parents, they came from Africa and then they worked their way up to the point where we were able to go to things like private school. You know, my parents paid for a lot of the stuff that I had. We never really had to struggle for anything.
All right.
So I've come from a position of privilege, but it's different because when you're in that situation, it's hard for you to compare yourself to others because it's like, okay, you see where they're coming from and people are fighting tooth and nail to get to where they're at. But then when you're in a position of privilege, you think to yourself, you put that pressure on yourself where you're like, okay, I have to be this because I've had a head start that people don't have. Therefore, if I fall short of those standards, all of a sudden everything's closing in. And it could be something as minor as, okay, I'm Nigerian, and in Nigerian households, anything that is less than a bachelor's degree in college is considered a failure. So if I'm doing remotely bad in college, all of a sudden I'm just like, oh my God, I'm a failure. What am I doing? Like, why am I not as smart as my African peers? You know, there's people who are getting A's and B's, and here I am getting like B's and C's. Like, all these first world problems that are coming up, but just based on where you've come from and the context that you're living in, you put so much pressure on yourself to the point where you give yourself this illusion that life is falling apart and everything around you is falling apart and everyone can see the failure that you are. Even though you may not be that failure actually in the open, internally you feel like you're just an absolute failure, and then you project that onto everyone that's around you. So you find that escape where you're helping people and you're trying to be nice to all your friends around you and helping people out, and then all of a sudden you paint this picture of perfection around the people that are around you, and that picture of perfection causes you to feel worse about yourself because it's like, oh my God, look where they came from, they're doing better than me. Look where they came from, they're doing better than me. And look where I came from, and I'm failing. Like, do you know what I mean?
Kind of makes you feel like an imposter.
Yeah, no, literally. That's all. It just makes like I'm just walking around life, and all I'm doing is faking. Nobody knows who the real me is. It's.
Yo, I'm gonna say, as somebody who comes from, we'll say, the opposite end of that particular spectrum, it does my heart good to hear somebody like want to live up to the just the privilege that they've received in life. You know what I mean? Because I've had a lot of experiences with a very different mentality from people with privilege. You know what I mean?
No, they take advantage of it.
Yeah, exactly. And they weaponize it and shit like that, and so it does my heart good as a person to hear somebody be like, no, I got to live up to this. Like, not only, I think a lot of it is like the cultural aspect of it, like being that your parents like came from Africa and like had their own struggle, like they probably and like you said, Nigerian households in general have such a high emphasis on education and success and stuff like that. So yes, a lot of these things like culminated, and for somebody in that position that you're in, I can see this being something like you're just fucked from all sides. Like one mistake, you can't trip without everybody like sitting on you to laugh at you. So you got to stay up the entire time, no matter what, and that can be daunting. You know what I mean? Oh. And I see where you're coming from with that, and that's fucking huge. And like I respect that you came forward with that.
I mean, but the thing is, me coming forward to that and really coming to terms with, the root of my problems. That's the only way I could feel comfortable in actually expressing what I was going through, because you're in a stage where like you're feeling all that pressure and you're like, you want to complain about it. You want to let it out. And then you look at other people. I have a lot of friends that have worked their way up to get to the point they're at now. And you're like, I don't have any right to complain. Look where this person came from. who am I to actually complain about what I'm dealing with? All these first world problems I'm dealing with. Well, this person is fighting tooth and nail just to make it by, and here I am sitting pretty, So it's just it's a different type of struggle, but it's like when you're in that position, you kind of downplay depression and you think it's not really a thing, and you ignore. Like I remember you mentioning how you never really gave yourself the opportunity to feel depressed. For me, it was just like there's no way I can be depressed because that's what actual depression looks like. People struggling, and then you realize, oh my God, I've been depressed for like 18 years of my life, and I didn't even know until I hit rock bottom. And the only way I had to hit rock bottom was through relationships. And that's when I realized, oh my God, there's so much wrong with me. I had this image of myself. I thought I was the perfect person, but I'm not.
There's nothing like a woman to tell you about yourself. I'll tell you what.
Bro, you have no idea, bro. And then you spent your whole life trying to be something without actually figuring out what you wanted to be. And then you get into a relationship with a woman, and then you try to find yourself in that woman, and then things go wrong, and all of a sudden everything just falls apart. And what's left? And that's where hell starts. And that's where it started. So it was just a long journey, man. And the rehabilitation process was long, a lot of self-reflecting, and
all right.
You need people, bro. You need people in your corner to get out of that, or you probably will never make it, man.
That's fair. All right. And what are some things like? How does the depression affect you? Like for me, I dissociate a lot. I dive into video games and books. Sabi does the same thing. I get hypersexual. My wife gets hyposexual. Hyper is when you just want to fuck all the time, and hypo is when you're like, nah, we ain't fucking ever. So
for me,
So
for me, I'll be honest. I didn't really see it as a big issue before, but it was weed for me. Honestly, I just used to smoke all the time, and when I actually had the ability to smoke weed and be free of my family and go to college and live in dorm rooms where you can buy weed and just get high whenever you wanted to. That's what it was.
All right, we're going to mute this man's mic. Let me stop. No, I'm just kidding. But you're right. It is.
But that's really what it is. It was weed for me, man.
No, and that's fair. That's fair. A lot of people use it in like I'll speak for myself. Like there was times when sobriety was a distant memory. You know what I mean? Like, and I just mean like because I was smoking all the time. Like I would wake up and like me and my best friend at the time would just roll around, do our thing, and smoke like 8-9 blunts a day. Like, not even. Then that's not like a slow day. I shit you not.
No, dead ass.
Dead ass, and that's just what it was. And you get so stuck in these moments, and you realize it's all the same moment.
Every time.
Exactly. Every time. And you want to be around, and it's not that people who smoke don't do this, but you want to be around people who want something more, who aren't just satisfied getting like I like myself, I'll speak on myself, who aren't just satisfied, with being high. Like I was for a long time, I was just satisfied if I could find a place to eat 3 or 4 times a week and had a roof over my head, I was fine. You know what I mean? So my focus was like, all right, I'm gonna stay high all the time. And then that was basically what I did. And now I smoke so little comparatively. Like other people may see it as a lot, but I'm like, you don't fucking get it.
You don't like.
Okay.
You're like you smoking a blunt at nighttime. That's
like I don't even smoke a blunt at a time. Like I'm down to just smoking bowls. Like you don't get it. I used to put like one of my favorite things, and it still is. And if you are an adult who is in a state where this is legal, I recommend you do this. But you take a blunt and you just rip like a 6-foot bong, and you take like the whole blunt all at once, and your whole day is done. Like
that's it.
You just sit down and wait for tomorrow to happen. But I recommend it because it's a good wait. But no, but again, you're not wrong. It's the same moment, and you live them no matter how many different people you're around. Because what I was doing at the time, I had to go to a lot of people's houses and things like that. So like no matter who was there, no matter what, it was all the same moment. It was, and you realize, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm gonna assume that you had the same moment where you're like, there's more to this.
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you my more moment. All right. And it turned my life around in ways you'll never fucking understand. But I was like just rip roaring high, like the stupid high, going through Walmart. So it was a long time ago because I boycotted Walmart for like the past fucking 8 years.
Fair play.
And I'm going through the condiment section. Like there's no real aim. You know what I mean? Just going through. And I grabbed a jar, the thing of Hellman's, and I was like, yo, do you think this is the best mayonnaise there is? Because Hellman's is my favorite mayonnaise. And I'm like, do you think like fucking Jay-Z is like, oh, I'm just going to go into my refrigerator and eat some fucking Hellman's? No, I bet there's some great fucking mayonnaise that I know dick about on some shelf in some store I'll never know about because I'm not rich and I'm not like I was really high. And I can't stress that enough, but the concept of that thought, like, it opened up an entire world for me because it's very true. Like, they don't sell the best mayonnaise at Walmart, and if all you're looking through things for, if all you're looking for, you think you can find at Walmart, you're never going to find the best things in life. And people are so complacent to shop at Walmart that they don't look for anything better. And that's a lot of times what like really heavy weed smoking becomes. And like I suppose for like hours at a time that has its place. You know what I mean? Dissociate, level out, find your groove, blah 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 blah. Maybe like take a step away from a bad situation, this, that, the third, whatever. But you can't it can't just be you can't just smoke because you want to smoke. Like I hate I've railed against that since I stopped doing it. But yeah, I respect that. I respect that. That's an unpopular opinion. Like most people, like especially, and I'm gonna have to say this eventually, but especially black people, where like
agreed.
You know what I mean?
Go
like
ahead.
the idea is that you're like the idea of mental health in the African American community is laughable anyway.
Like, extremely far behind, and
it's-
if you incorporate the African community, it's in the Stone Age. So
yeah, and
you're fine.
Yeah, all right. And I'm trying to like be as responsible about this as I can, being so pale. But I am Puerto Rican, so it does give me a little leeway.
There you go. It's interesting you say that, just because there's always everybody can look back at that one small moment, and for them, we're all humans. We all have our own individual motivations. There's always moments that hit us differently. We can have 1,000 different reactions to the same thing. But like I said, 1,000 different humans will have a different reaction to the same thing. For you, it was the moment with the mayonnaise. For me, somebody just told me, I want you to see yourself the way we see you. And the moment they said, I don't know, but people have been trying to give me advice for the longest time. But for some reason, when a friend of mine said that, that's when I really realized, wow. People see me in this light, but I can't even see myself in the light that they see me in. Something has to change.
I swear I've had some ain't shit ass friends. Good God.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, there's certain people, they don't have to be ever present in your life, but the people that will motivate you to like move forward and expect better out of you, those are the people that, they may not talk to you for a while because they know you're messing up, but when you come to them, they're still going to give you the same message. Yo, I expect better. I need you to be better. And there's a difference between enabling and, pushing a positive image on your friend for them to actually grab a hold of that image. Eventually, God, we hope they ever, grab hold of that positive image and just run with it. Because at the end of the day, the only one who's going to save you is yourself.
See, I think, and I don't know, maybe this is just my perspective because but that kind of comes with like you have to have an amount of privilege to have somebody in your life that thinks that you can even be better.
1,000%. I agree with you.
Because in my life, like I did not have that. Like there wasn't like I had people who loved me as best as they could as people. You don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody until I'm very directly throwing shade, so you'll know when that happens. but I don't know. Humans are so flawed. It's hard to any relationship that you have with another person can be seen through so many lenses based on where you are at that point in time in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'll just to open up a little bit for myself. Like, I'll use my mom as an example. Like, me and my mom never got along. I think I lived with her for a total of maybe a year my entire life, and yeah, it's just an incredibly bad situation. And it's not healthy for either one of us. She should have never had me. But for the first I was in the homes for 15 years. Yeah. So until I was like 15, like she was, for lack of a better term, she was like the Madonna. Like she was this damn near biblical holy entity that consumed my life revolved around getting to this person. In every sense of the word. So in that sense, you idealize and you create these fantastic like vestiges of who this human is in your head that they have no way of living up to begin with, let alone when they're just dumpster fires worth of people anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You see, but it's funny you say that, right? Because it's like when that person told me that, I was still operating in that mindset of everyone around me is perfect but me. And then when I started to try to find what is the better version of myself, and then I realized that humans, it's going to sound redundant, but humans are human. Mm-hmm. So it's just like you realize, everybody else has their own thing that's deep within them that's just messed up. And they're not going to show it to you because no one wants to show their messed up side ever. Everyone is scared of showing up their messed up side. So it's just like you just take what you can see, but then you don't realize, okay, look within yourself and you realize, I have all this stuff that's messed up within me.
I had that in reverse because how I came up, everybody basically couldn't control the fact that they showed their worst side at all times. Like, because I was in, like, psychiatric wards, state-run facilities, group homes, foster homes, institutions, shit like that. You know what I
mean? No, so that's where the privilege comes in. Yeah. Like what you were mentioning before.
Yeah.
That's where the privilege comes in.
Yeah, so for me, it's like when I finally got out, like, into the real world, and people weren't like that, I was so ill at ease. Because it's like those paintings of, like, it's like a calm, like, surface water, but underneath there's like this giant kraken thing, and there's like a little fucking boat on top that has no idea. You know what I mean? And and that's kind of, I felt like that all the time, no matter who I was around, because I couldn't fathom that people were like decent in any way. But
that's fair.
But that people lived their life in a decent way, like, was it? No. You know what I mean? And it took a long time, and even now, I still have trouble with, like, people being nice to me. Like, we were like moving or something, and her brother that lives in Long Island is going to come up and help us move just because he's going to come up and help us. And my first response to that was, "Oh, fuck him." Like, and it's not like an angry response. Like, I'm very appreciative of this. Like, I can't begin to appreciate this enough. But my first response is, "Oh no, fuck no! Like, you don't have to do that. Don't worry about it. I appreciate it." Da 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 da. And it didn't for years. This has been a chronic thing. That's just one example. But my sister, over in June, like literally last month, just about, or the month before. My sister was like, "You gotta start letting people be nice to you." And I'm like, "I'm not good at it, man. Like, nice is that thing you get before somebody hurts you. That's my worldview. Like, that's how I came up. That's all I knew. And nice is just that thing you get before somebody hurts you. And and it was really hard for me to kind of break that and get that in and kind of put my own and internalize it, because I do a lot of like internal psychiatric medicine on myself, which is a fancy way of saying I don't talk to people, I deal with it my damn self. But
you know, it's so interesting because your story is like the literal opposite of mine, and it's just so interesting to hear where you come from and where I've come from, and it seems like we're meeting in the middle, and we're starting to like. You're starting to get used to people that actually being nice, and I'm getting used to people actually being, you know, pretty shitty. If it makes sense.
No, that's fair, because that's its own trial. Yeah,
it's something where it's just like I have this delusion, and then people. I'm pretty sure you can speak to this. People of privilege have this delusion that the world can be a utopia. Everybody's going to be nice. Everybody's going to be understanding. Everybody's going to be empathetic. And that's something that I've always held in belief just because of my upbringing, people that I've been around. Do you know what I mean? And then you get into the real world and it shocks you every time. And you're just like, it's like people with the whole relationship thing, it's just like whenever I found someone who could give me the positive attention that I needed to feel good about myself, I'd cling on to them. I'd latch onto them because it's just like, oh my God, this is something I've always grown up with. I need this in my life. And then after you're gone, you're just like, oh my God, where is it? Where can I find it? So you just find yourself latching on to somebody every single time you have space. And then for you, you're just like, oh my God, like, why is everybody so fucked up? Like, can somebody be different or just fuck everybody, right? You just get to a point where like, yo, fuck everybody. If everyone's gonna be like this, I don't want to be with anybody, right?
that's basically, yeah.
So then you get into this
Wait,
crossroads.
Sabi?
I'm here.
Oh, did you try and talk?
No?
Oh, all right. I thought I heard. Okay. Sorry.
No, you good, bro. You good. And you just get to this crossroads, and it's just like, oh, okay, people can be nice, and then for me, it's like, okay, people have a bad side too. People struggle with things too. Let me not be so hard on myself. And then you're just like, let me ease up on myself. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just so interesting how life works.
And
You know what I think's really neat is that what you two kind of show is that, like, when it comes to depression, it doesn't matter what you bring to the table. Like, depression doesn't care. Depression doesn't care if you're privileged and have every opportunity, because you could be driving a Mercedes-Benz and still want to drive it into oncoming traffic.
Yes.
And the same can be true from the perspective of a kid with nothing, where that depression is still there and you still want to jump off the nearest bridge. Like the
and
depression,
there's
it doesn't matter what it stems from. If it's a situational depression, which it can be, but if it's an emotional or chemical depression, it just doesn't care. It doesn't care what you're going through. Like, you're here now, and that's what makes it an equalizer
and
across the board.
And you're absolutely right, but there's the like mentality. I'll speak for myself. Like I would see somebody in Jay's position and be like, "What the fuck do they have to be sad about?" You know what I mean? Like, rah, you have everything I could fucking dream of, and you've always just fucking had it. You know what I mean? Like, not you as a person, obviously. Of
course.
But you get like so entrenched in these us and them mentalities, and the fact that the them has to be better than the us. You know what I mean? And that's really what it comes down to, is that regardless, and even for you, it would be the us versus the them, and we would be the them that's better for whatever fucking reason. We're freer. We don't have the ton of responsibilities or pressure on us. We don't have this, that, and the third. You know what I mean?
We don't have any expectations.
Yeah,
if we grow up with no support, basically no support system,
Yeah.
where is your expectation? You are as free as you want to be.
Exactly.
You know, that's all perspective.
So,
Exactly.
do you read My Hero, Valen?
Every week.
So, this is gonna make us really good friends. I'm gonna tell you right now.
Wait, Sabi, is this one you're reading and you don't want spoilers about? Because
No. Trust me.
Go for it.
I know you are. It's like I'm Bakugo, right? And it's like you are Deku, right? And you see how Bakugo hates the shit out of Deku, right? And then you learn about Bakugo and you realize he's always been privileged. He's always had the nice quirk. Everybody views him, he's definitely gonna be a hero. But he puts so much pressure on himself to be the number one hero. And he looks at Deku And then he sees how Deku has nothing, and he's like, oh yeah, well, he's counting on me to be something because he's nothing. And then he sees Deku start progressing, and then he compares himself to Deku and like, yo, Deku's progressing so much quicker than me. What the fuck is wrong with me? And he gets angrier and angrier and hates Deku even more and more. And it's just like, you see the definition of privilege and no privilege, and you see where Deku's come from. And he goes all the way up to the top, and Bakugo's watching him, and he's just like putting so much pressure on himself to get to the point where he needs to be, when he just needs to be himself and just work as hard as Deku does, because Deku's understanding, like, I need to get to where I'm at because of hard work. Nobody's going to help me, so I might as well help myself, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that whole dynamic of, you see two sides of the spectrum, one without a quirk, one with a quirk, but they both go through the same type of depression and feelings that they're going through. And I don't know, man. It seems like a valid comparison. If I'm wrong, let me know, please.
No. You're definitely spot on with that, and especially the way people looked at him, because everybody looked at Deku like, why the fuck is he even here? Especially like people that knew him, like fucking. I can only imagine Bakugo's friends being like, fucking Deku. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, quirkless Deku. You know what I mean? And yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's the manga in us, the hashtag shonen spirit that we have, that kind of lets us see that. But a lot of people don't. They still, like, I know, I'll speak for myself. Like, I know it's hard for me. Like, even now that I'm doing, like, as far as I would concern, like, we'll say 10 years ago, I'm doing super fucking good in life right now. But, like, in the overall terms, I'm just doing good. But if I would have seen that, like, the place I am now is not the place I was, or even thought possible years ago, and that's kind of the thing. Like, nobody thought that Deku could be even in the same league or sport as Bakugo. Exactly. You know what I mean? And now here they are. Deku's beaten Bakugo. Well, in the public eye, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, in a lot of ways, because of how far he's come in such a short distance, as opposed to Bakugo, who's always been expected to be great. And in real life, there's people who are in the privileged position. They often will do this thing where they try to, like, kick somebody like me in the face when they're trying to bring themselves up.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
No, every single time. No, you're not wrong in any capacity whatsoever.
Because I know I got to the point, oh, hey, look, I got a new subscriber in the Arbiter 223. Thank you kindly.
There you go.
Got to throw that up there. But yeah, where was I? That kicked me up my brain. I didn't know my screen would do that.
You were talking about people with privilege, where they kind of just kick somebody who's down just to feel better about themselves.
Yeah, like I have, like, there's pictures of me at events that I help put together and run at the top floor hotel ballroom of the Empire Hotel in New York City. Like, that shit's next to the fucking Met, bro. Like, real talk.
Right.
and after I got home from that, like, my friends wouldn't even fucking talk to me. Like, I lost all the friends I'd had for like 10 years prior because I started putting effort into being better. And some of them is because they come from the same situation as me, and they saw me, like, living my best life at the time as an affront to them. Like I made, like, I'm bougie now, essentially. And the friends I had that were more affluent were basically like, you can try, but you'll never be one of us. That's the feeling I got. Not like that anything like that was ever said, or anything like that, but that's the impression that I was left with. And you feel like there's nothing to do. And for people like me and you that we almost religiously read, manga, watch anime, we understand there's only one thing to do in those moments, and that's power up, Super Sentai boost, and go fuck some shit up. Like,
exactly, dog.
And that's
I was like, yo, man, I gotta be a Super Saiyan now.
There's no other options. All right.
I gotta be Super Saiyan 3 now. Super Saiyan is not enough for me. You get to that point.
And that's kind of the point. Like, and with depression, it's like there's a blocker on that Zentai boost. You know what I mean? And it's like, no matter how hard you try, no matter how how hard somebody else is trying to pull you down, there's always, like, as my buddy the dude Arbiter 223 would said before, it's like quicksand, and sometimes the more somebody tries to help you out, the harder the suction becomes, like, and you can't, and it's just like you're pulling. And I'll speak for myself. Like, I've pulled my wife down a bit on a number of occasions because I was just in such a bad state. But she's able to kind of give me that talk no jutsu. You know what I mean?
That's dope, dog. That's dope.
That gives me, like, and she puts me in that spot, and me and the QB bump fists, and I'm back at it again. And
you always need someone in your corner, bro.
And that's what it is. And you can feel alone, and I do. I spend like 10 hours a day. It's just me and my 2-year-old, and that's fucking it. You know what I mean? That's a lot of time with just a baby, and
right.
And so I often feel alone and despondent and isolated. No matter how amazing of a job she does, there's just nothing she can do to combat the fact that with only one person, they get outshadowed by all the people that aren't there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's just what there is. You're not seeing, the ring for the gold. You're seeing the ring for the hole, I guess is the way to put it. And it's just rough. But yeah. Oh, also, do you notice anything you do, any specific thing you do that lets you know where your depression is? For example, myself, when I notice myself playing a specific games, like if I am playing Final Fantasy Tactics, I know. Sorry, I'm jumping off, Miss Wong. That's why y'all need to move to where I am. Okay, I love you. Come to me. All right. Sorry, that's my my sister-in-law. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but for me, it's Final Fantasy Tactics, and when I notice myself, like, not even three chapters in with like a ninja and a Black Knight, and I'm like, maybe I've dumped too much time into this. and that's one of the things that I do, and it's it's actually one of the ways that I help myself get out, because I notice it, so I'll start playing less and less, which means I'm dealing with things more and more. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things, the tendencies I have that helps pull me out, while also being one of the things that I notice.
Oh, that's fair, man.
Another game.
Me,
oh, sorry. I've
no, go ahead.
Another game, and this is sort of a plug that I'm going to end up playing on my Twitch, is Dragon Ball Z RPG. I'm going to play it before Kakarot comes out, the new one. But it's one of the first. It's for Super Nintendo. It is fucking dope. I'm going to play it. Y'all going to love it. Now, Jay, please take it away from my face, because I'm just talking about me now.
No. I would say for me, I always know when I'm slipping back into it when I start smoking again. And, like, I remember you mentioned, like, it's like there's certain levels to it. There's times where it's just like, okay, maybe like once every, like, 3 weeks or something like that. It's spaced out like that. And then it turns into every day. And then it turns into when you wake up in the morning, you want to feel, you know what I mean? It's a progressive slump, and then you think it's just you feeling good, and I'm in a good place, and then you realize, what is it like to feel sober? And once you get to that point where it's like, I don't remember what I feel like sober, that's when it's just like, okay, I'm depressed about something, but I haven't confronted it yet, And that's when that's when I have to start doing the soul searching. I have to put the weed away. And then it's just like, all right, you gotta go cold turkey, my guy, and figure this shit out.
And that's fair.
So that's always what it's been for me, at the very least.
See, that's super fair, and that's a good way. Sabi, what about you?
Things that I will do when I'm depressed. I think like I said, if like dissociating, yeah. I smoking more. Like if I'm smoking like all day long, then I'm like, yeah, I'm like trying to separate myself from something. Um, Other things that I'll do, it's only been a couple of times that I've ever like binge drinked because of it. I think I'm past that stage in my life, but I did at one point. I would binge drink, and then, um, yeah, if I start grinding out games, I'm like, am I depressed? Because I'm one of those like OCDs, like I have to get 100%. I have to get all of the trophies, and if I do that to a game in like a week, there's a problem.
I can definitely understand that.
Same.
So I can tell like when I'm like really trying to separate myself from the real world, like on a hard level.
And it's weird because you don't even realizing you're trying to do it. You just think it's like another part of your day, and that's when you know it's bad because you don't know how far you're slipping until you catch it. You know.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And that's kind of like the whole point is like a lot of times you can't see yourself falling down, you know what I mean? But it's when you see that hand that reaches out, like for me it's usually my wife, then that you can grab something and pull you out. And yeah, like she'll sometimes, she used to come in all the time. She's actually here. Right? Okay. She was here a second ago. But yeah, like a support system is so incredibly important. Like it can't be understated. And I've said it before, we all feel like we do this so alone and so isolated, but there's always going to be somebody, and you got to look for it. Like because the depression is going to trick you into thinking they're not there.
Yeah.
Period.
When they always are. It's just being aware. At the end of the day, it's just just keep your eyes open, Don't just assume everybody is the same depiction of what you have of everybody else, if that makes sense. It's just
you're absolutely correct.
So, man, depression is no joke, man. It really isn't. The fact that I used to think it was a joke beforehand.
And that's the thing. That's the fucking thing. It's no joke, but it's treated that way.
Yeah.
And
it can be, yeah.
And like there was, I don't know, did any of you watch the show Blackish? Or Grownish, sorry. Grownish.
No.
Well, they actually
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
It's pretty decent. But they did an episode about mental health, and the show is very like I guess the term is like Afrocentric. I don't know.
It is.
But,
it is.
Right, and so it dealt with that, and one of the dudes that I identify with more often than not, he was like, it all just kind of seems like a flex to me, like they're just on that sad boy kick, trying to get whatever they can off that. And to an extent, there are, we'll say, out of every 100, the 5 or 6 that are on that level, but like it's ridiculous to think that everybody is that way just because like so few people are. And it becomes such normal thought because hate is so much more vocal than love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people will be like, nah, you're just flexing on even the littlest thing. And if one person does it, another person's going to feel safe to do it. And it just snowballs. And hate is like that. Hate will snowball so much faster than love will. And that's a shitty truth.
I think when you realize like the intricacies of being a human being, I think you really start to understand I think you get to understand that every individual person is an individual. And then you understand that the people that it's like you would gather a bunch of people together. So you're walking around Walmart and you see a bunch of people and you get anxiety thinking they're all judging you. And then you kind of put them in a group when you don't realize every single one of them has their own thoughts. And then on top of that, they're probably worrying about themselves. They're probably worrying about you thinking that they're an idiot when you think they're thinking you're an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like you put yourself under this pressure that everybody is watching you and everybody's looking at you and everyone's going to treat you like trash when it's your own mind putting you in a bubble, that you just can't get out of because it's yourself. So you're going to listen to yourself more than anyone else. You got to live with yourself every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a horrible cycle, and just having to get out of that. It's just you really just got to. It's not about fighting, because the more you fight it, the worse it gets. It's like you have to like take a step back and then look at yourself and look at the thoughts that are flying around in your mind and realizing they're just thoughts, but the moment I believe them, they become true.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's just like you can look at your thoughts, but you don't have to believe them. You can just look at them and observe them and think, oh, instead of thinking, oh, that's true, you think, oh, where's that coming from? And that little difference is the key to really like trying to stabilize yourself. At least for me, that's the one way that I stabilize myself.
I will say that I agree to that to a certain extent. Like my partner, when he can tell I'm getting really depressed, or when, for example, I'm a veterinarian, and one of the first things that I did after I graduated was fail my national boards. And the feeling of that is like insurmountable, because
Devastating.
not only is it like your entire career, you just invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to school, and now you can't practice. Like, short of that, it's this, I'm a fucking failure. Like, just stone cold. That's what that is. And
it's fucked up when you got quantifiable proof to back up the shit you feel about yourself.
And that's exactly it. And when you've already have depression and you're already like, I'm an imposter, and I can kind of stand on the same level with you with regard to like that imposter syndrome, that feeling of like no one sees me, because I came from a position where at one point I was nothing but a worthless drug addict, and that's who I still feel like. But now I am a responsible veterinarian and I have to save lives. Like, that contrast is crazy sometimes, where you're like, you just don't know me. You don't know who I was. You have no clue.
Yes. That is
and so like that kind of stuff is like insurmountable. But but with regard to like the thoughts you say to yourself, and truly believing the things that you say or what you think of yourself. So my partner, when I went through that, one of the very first things he did was he started writing encouraging words on like the mirrors, and he would write them in weird places. And he would just say like, all you have to do is see them. He's like, for right now, just see them. He's like, later you can believe them, but for now, just see them.
He's a fucking champion.
Right?
And
he's a fucking champion, dog.
And it made me sick at first. I was like, I am not these things. Like, I am not pretty. I am not smart. I am not these things. But part of me was like, well, fuck, if someone else can write it about me, like, what room do I have to say, like, fuck you, you're not right.
Right.
You know? So to that extent, yes, words are huge. Even if you don't believe them, if they're in your face every single day, sooner or later, some of that rubs off. And that's true for positivity or negativity.
My wife does that shit. Like, it looks like a beautiful mind all over the apartment with like all the words of affirmation and shit she does.
Yep, exactly.
You know, but I find, first of all, that's beautiful. First of all, your husband's a hero. Second of all,
facts.
I just think it's amazing because, again, it's like the opposite side of the spectrum for me, right? You didn't believe any of those words when you saw them at first, and it made you sick. For me, I would desperately chase after it because I just
going. I'll be right back.
I just needed something to validate myself. So then I'd have to be able to validate that by finding a partner. And no matter how toxic the relationship would be, when they'd compliment me and make me feel good and make me feel special, even though I wouldn't believe it, it's like I'm getting those words, and that's what I've been looking for. So no matter how bad it gets, I'll stay. And I'll keep going back, and I'll keep going back. And it'll hinder you from seeing the world and meeting other people because, oh my God, when I was there, I got that attention. I got that positivity that I can't give myself. So I need to get that back. I need to get that affirmation. And then for you guys, it's just like, it's a different spectrum. It's just like having someone put that in your face is what saved you. For me, having someone searching for it and getting it in toxic places actually was killing me. internally. And it's just wild when I had to take a step back and I was like, yo, I gotta rely on myself. For you guys, it's like, yo, I needed somebody. For me, I was like, yo, I gotta get the hell away. It's so crazy how life is different for so many other people, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think too that need to fulfill, I probably and has, and you can absolutely correct me if I'm wrong, but put you in situations where you're almost in an abusive position because you'll give anything to just that one person say what they need, say what you want to hear.
No, that's it. That's it to a T. It's like you're abusive and you don't even think you're abusive, and you kind of find a way to make yourself in the right, but then you also find a way to keep them. And it's so messed up. It's just so messed up. And just, man, coming to terms with that and the road back, it's just imagine, it's like for the physical, I know you mentioned this, like being a recovering drug addict. It's like for you, the mental and then the physical game and the physical struggle you had to deal with was like astronomical. And then for me, the mental comeback was just like, I'm coming from, it's like, even though I have all this stuff going for me, I felt like in my mind, I was coming from ground zero. And you're in that space where I'm just like, yo, I was nothing. In my head, I was nothing. And then just to work myself up to the point I'm at now, like Valen was saying, when you look back and you see where you are mentally compared to where you are now, you're just like, Jesus Christ, how did I not kill myself? Like you're just thinking, how did I survive that? I don't know how I survived it. You know,
No,
so
true. And that's the big thing, is that I think more than anything that talking about depression and getting on different levels with people with regard to like what their depression looks like. Depression is a huge problem in our society, and I think that it takes many faces and comes from many different places, but it's all, it can all lead to the same unwanted end if we're not there to support each other. And I think as much knowledge as we can gain off of how and when it happens, it's, it'll save somebody somewhere.
And you're not wrong. If I'm allowed to interject with my little tinfoil hat, if I may.
Please do.
I'm the kind of person that thinks the uptick in depression isn't an accident at all. Like, I'm the kind of person that thinks the uptick in depression and the cultural acceptance of ignoring such an obvious thing that affects everyone almost universally, affects everybody different, but still affects them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And as a society, it's like you said, we all saw it as a joke, especially when we're younger. You know what I mean? Before, like, not even before we got woke, but just before it became okay to really talk about mental health. You know what I mean?
Well, God, I remember that one. I remember in the national news at some point when I was younger, probably like middle school or early elementary school, there was like this whole debacle because a girl like hung herself outside of her school, and it was all about like bullying. And that was like when I really remember the first time people starting to talk about depression and suicide was. But I also remember that at the same time, like in the school that I was in and with the kids that I was with, it was very much like, oh, what a dumb bitch, and like every derogatory thing.
Oh my God.
Every derogatory thing that a kid could say at that moment in time was said, like, before I left school that day.
And the truth is because most of those kids were afraid of what that made them feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're afraid of being viewed in the same light as that girl when they don't realize they're going through the same thing she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you guys remember way back when, I think her name was Amber something. I don't remember the name of that chick. It was this one white chick, brunette. She was bullied online and she drank bleach to kill herself.
Oh, yeah. I do remember her story.
And
yeah.
People were making so many memes, bleach memes.
Yep.
Of just her killing herself. And I don't remember her story exactly, but it's just like the way we treated that.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was a one massive joke. And this is not like 4chan or like the dark web or anything. This is public view. This is Facebook.
Dude, people are fucked up. Like, look at all the shit.
You know what I mean?
Oh, just to bring it up. Look at all the shit they did with fucking Etika. You know what I mean? Like before like his body was found, people were doing everything. You know what I mean? Like memes about the items he left behind for people to find and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, he's stepping his game up. Next thing you know, he'll leave da 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 this week or da da da. Like, it's people were so fucked up, and it's one of the reasons I decided to actually like do a mental health stream in general, because just it's so easy to get pulled. Like I said before, hate snowballs so easily.
No, it's very, and I'll just be honest and as candid as possible. When the Etika stuff was going on, I was one of the naysayers. So I'm just like, yo, he's doing this for attention. Like, I don't understand, because this is like in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, you are such a famous figure, and you have so many people around you that care about you. They love your content. They talk about you all the time. And you're just going crazy, and you're posting crazy Twitter posts, and you're just, you know what I mean? And you see that, and you just think it's all a stunt. You just sit in that social media chair, and you throw fiery darts.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's real.
Exactly.
And then you sit there, and you're just like, oh my God. Right? And then I had to look within myself, and I really thought to myself, okay, wait a minute. You just recovered from depression. Like, literally, like 6 months ago. You just recovered. And you really, like, you didn't analyze your behavior in that time. You didn't analyze your attention-seeking behavior. But here, Etika's suffering and going through everything he's going through, and it only becomes real to you when he dies. It can't be like that. It can't be like that anymore. There has to be, and it makes it worse because it's like there's somebody who's so famous, so he has so many people that are in contact with him every day. And there wasn't someone there that was enough for him to actually try to rehabilitate himself. To me, that is sad. I think that's the saddest thing of all time. To have that many people around you.
And to be completely alone.
And just to be alone, it's so
and
that's sad.
And that's like the thing about depression is I'm positive he had hundreds, probably thousands of voices telling him how great he is, telling him he'll get through this. But he had just as many, we'll say even if it's 50-50 split, all right? Like just the brain chemistry, just to speak on a strictly chemical fucking level, all right? And to use terminology that works, the brain is Teflon for good shit, Velcro for bad shit. Yeah. All right, it's just a biological function of the brain. It's an adaptive thing that we just never got rid of. It's just part of our brain. You know what I mean? It's one of the ways we knew this is good, that's good. We know that, but we need to remember the bad so that we stay alive. You know what I mean? And that's the Oedipus of it, long and short. Oh, something's on my toe. And this whole thing just, it really exemplified the idea that you can have this person who has presumably everything, and people shouting for him, telling him that he's great, but even one of those negative voices is worth 100 of the positive, and people don't get that shit. And at my worst with this whole Etika thing, because I'll admit, like, I wasn't like an Etika fan. I've only even been doing YouTube for like a year. You know what I mean? Like at the time of his passing. So like I wasn't like hip to all his stuff. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not saying I was a fan or anything, but I appreciate the fact that he was alive as a human. And but I had seen and fell into the hype that he was doing all this stuff for, you know, for public view and stuff like that, and then he put like porn on his YouTube to get it taken down, and the video of him telling cops he's a porno, and like it all just, it seemed too much not to be what everybody said it was, you know what I mean? And part of me realizes now that it was the depression making him lean into these expectations so people got what they wanted, because that's what you do when you're depressed. You give people what they want enough to leave you alone, you know what I mean? And that's what happened. And like, you can tell, like, everything's so 2020 in hindsight in any situation, but you can tell that last video was just fucking different. You know what I mean? Like the one where he's walking across, I want to say Manhattan Bridge.
Yeah.
That shit's just fucking different. It has a whole different vibe to it. And that's just all there is to it. And it was a little before that. Like I said, at my lowest, I was like, this dude needs to stop this kind of shit. Like, there's people out there who have real fucking problems. And
Yo, that's exactly
that's what it is, and
Oh,
and of course he couldn't be one of those people with real fucking problems. How could he? He's Etika. Look, he's got 1 million fucking followers. He gets invited. He gets free games from Nintendo. What's he got to worry about? Like,
yo,
come on, man. And you know what I mean? And that's the perspective we have as outsiders, because all we see is that we project our desires on the things that they have, and if they meet those, then they're fucking fine.
yes.
You know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to.
Do you guys think if there was a way that you could like destigmatize mental health, like to a certain extent, obviously, but do you truly think destigmatizing these things, making them just not appear as bad, would help those types of people? When you say having a mental health problem isn't bad, you destigmatize it, but then you say people who have life too good can't have these problems. Like, do you think destigmatizing would do anything for those people, like Robin Williams or this other YouTuber or whatever?
Honestly, I want to say yes, but the answer is probably not. Ooh, sorry.
Well, it's funny because my view of Etika and his situation, it's just like throwing stones at a glass house, because everything that I've said in this stream points out to the fact that I came from a place of privilege. How could I have problems compared to people who have it a lot worse than me? And then for me, I'm literally putting myself in the position of the people who I thought had it a lot worse than me, and looking at Etika, I'm like, bro, you ain't got no problems. Like, stop bullshitting.
Exactly.
Right.
And especially, I can't say his quote, but his quote, like, it's no bitch. If you could say it for me, Jay.
No bitch niggas allowed. I remember that, right?
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. I can't. You're never gonna catch me saying that. None.
You're a good man.
But yeah, and there was, and you'd think. I remember when they found his body, bro. Like, I was actually hurt by it, not because like I was a fan, but because he's a living human, and because I felt in a way my indifference helped contribute to this nonsense. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if you didn't feel that way, you're a fucking monster of a human. Like, honestly, if you like followed the situation, if you ever commented even once on anything, and you don't have that thought like, fuck, what if he saw my comment? You know what I mean? You're probably a monster of a human. Like, honestly. Like, that's just my opinion. I'm probably wrong, and that's okay. But that's just how I feel. Because I was like, what the fuck? And part of it was because you know what's about to happen, and you don't want it to happen. It's not the fact that he's dead. It's the reaction to him being dead that you dread. Because there's gonna be the two camps, you know what I mean, or rather the three camps. You know, there's the camp that doesn't give a shit because they don't care. You know what I mean? It's not that they don't care because they're like vapid or indifferent. It's just they don't know who Etika is. Blah 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 blah.
That's my camp.
Yeah, that's my camp. Yeah, exactly. And then there's the camp of people who think they'll use it to make jokes and elevate themselves for, you know, likes, and people who use this to kind of propel themselves, and the people who will take an actual introspective note and try to like be better for the next time this happens to help. You know what I mean? And I genuinely believe that these two camps exist. I want, maybe it's because I want to so bad. You know what I mean? I'll admit that, but so I'll say I want to genuinely believe that these two camps exist. I know the one full of vitriol is definitely the bigger and stronger of the two. Don't get me wrong, because like a theme of this is that hate, you know, compounds faster than love. And
I think those two camps that you speak about, we've seen those camps exist. Like to kind of go back to what Jay was saying with the girl that killed herself in the small town after being bullied on Facebook. There was a documentary on Netflix that followed two girls. The first girl killed herself. The second girl like had to up and leave leave the town that they were in to get away from the bullying. But the one girl that killed herself, like the whole family was like, we were basically attacked for saying that like these students caused her depression and her death, but that's what we feel. And then they vilified that entire family.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat who obviously knows about this mentioned that it was because like she sent naked pics to someone and it spread online, and she like moved to a different school and it followed her there, and that's where she killed herself. And then her parents were like, "What the fuck did you guys do to our little girl?" And everybody's like, "Well, maybe it was your little girl who did it to herself." And it's like, whoa, what the fuck is wrong with people? Did you really just say that to grieving parents? What the fuck is your problem?
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I mean. Is like those, but you know, there are the people that are like, we need more awareness. Like bullying is worse because of social media, and there's no block. Like when you would go to school back when we were little, and there was no internet. You go to school, you get bullied. You go home, there's no more bullying because you're at home. But now you can be bullied 24/7.
It's true, and like I have people who are like who believe that cyberbullying doesn't exist. Like you can just turn shit off and it stops. Yes, this is their opinion. Obviously, I don't agree with this. I believe that bullying takes many forms. I got a friend, my buddy Soul. He doesn't believe that bullying exists at all, and I wish he was here to defend this, but that's a different conversation. But
how it depends. How old is he?
Soul, he's a full-grown adult. Like he's like.
Is he like 24, 26? Does he have kids?
Between that and no.
See, once he has children, it'll be different for him. He'll understand. Because for me, we've all been bullied. I've been bullied. But when I see, when I go to church and I see there's this young kid and his older brother, and the young kid he's a very emotional child. And when he gets angry, he bottles it up and just stays quiet and like huffs and puffs. And he's just quiet. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't speak to anybody. He doesn't listen to anybody. And his little brother is the type to just keep nagging and poking and prodding, right? Mm-hmm. And when I see that, you think it's innocent. And he's like, yo, I want to tell the little boy. I'm like, yo, you got to be a man, man. Like, you got to deal with that anger inside, man. You can't let him get to you. And then you think about it, you're just like, oh my God, he's a 5-year-old child. and then you think about it again. Think about it. You amplify it. You think about a 16-year-old that goes, maybe a 12-year-old, 13-year-old going through this bullying. I'm 26. I didn't really start understanding life and how I should operate my life until I was like 25.
I will admit that's when I turned my corner too.
Yeah, and then you got 13 and 14-year-olds being bullied every day. And you expect them to just be a grown man and understand how to deal with that pressure and that bullying and just be a man about it? When their makeup is to be emotional, and no slight on their parents, but they haven't found a way to deal with that emotion, or they haven't found an exit or a medium. What do you do then? Bullying exists. It definitely exists because the strong prey on the weak. That we're humans. We're natural creatures. That's how we operate. The strong will always prey on the weak, and the weak will always be bullied.
See, this might be a discussion for another time, but the perception of strength and weakness has been so monopolized by simple physicality that, and in this day and age, that's just not true anymore. Like, I mean, it's still true for bullies. It's still true for bullies. Don't get the wrong idea. But nowadays, the smarter you are, the more successful you be. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're going to, make foreman of the steel mill just because you work real hard. You need a fucking master's. That's just how the world works now. You know what I mean? So, like, the whole concept of strong and weak has shifted paradigms almost violently over the past, 5 or 6 years. Because it used to be like it used to be a bachelor's was okay. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you got a bachelor's in something. That's wonderful. Congratulations. Now it's like, and how many certifications do you have? What
do you have 2 years of experience?
Yeah. Do you have 15 years of experience? I'm 20.
And you're not getting no jobs. You got student loan. Don't even get me started, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And all those things you just said also contribute. The idea of success is something that contributes to depression so wholeheartedly. Like, I'll speak for myself, and like, we're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. You know what I mean? Like, that's what an education costs. You know, and that's just all there is to it. There's no other way, unless you got like super dope ass parents who can fork over that kind of money, which, you know, kudos if you do. I hate you. No, but you know, that level of debt seems insurmountable. No matter how well educated you are and how good money planning you have, when you see those numbers month after month, even though they're getting smaller, although heaven forbid you miss a week or miss a month rather, like, don't even get me started on that racket. But those numbers are so fucking heavy. You know what I mean? And that's just that. We'll just say those are school loans. You know what I mean? There's life things that were all before that too. Like, it's just fucking insane. And now that's just the norm. You're expected to have student debt. You're expected to be under an overwhelming amount of pressure constantly, so that if you slip up once, you're probably fucked for life.
Yeah,
that's the fucking normal right now.
You know what's interesting too is I feel like we got that kind of shove, like, sort of. I will say, in comparison, we sort of had that shoved down our throat. Like, growing up, it was go get through high school, go to college, and you know, the ideal world was go to college right out of high school, get that 4-year degree, and start your life with a bachelor's. That was kind of the plan, but I can tell you, just based on talking to the kids who are currently like graduating, like Sean's youngest sister is graduating from high school this upcoming year. And I feel like their anxiety in comparison to what mine was to go to college seems so much higher. Like, if I don't do this, I'm a failure. And if I don't do this, then I will never do it.
it's a shame.
Yeah.
It really is.
See, I had the exact opposite though. Like, my college anxiety is, I don't know. Sabi, did you ever meet my mom, or you just meet my grandma?
Just your grandma.
All right. Well, my mom loved to remind me and my sister that she had this Lou Gehrig rookie card for my sister's college fund, and whenever I would bring it up, she would just laugh. And that was the entire conversation. Like, you're not getting into college. That's no. You know what I mean? And that's
so much.
It is. Like I said, some people are just dumpster fires. But that's when you say, like, you start to believe it. You hear it enough, you start to believe it. Even if that person doesn't fucking matter. Even if that person, you know, you're realizing more and more how horrible that person is. You hear something enough, and it's the only thing you hear, because, you know, she wasn't the only one. Like, my grandma would say things she was nicer about. She's like, maybe school's just not for you. You know, stuff like that, because, you know, my grandma loved me in her own way. and stuff like that. It's just and so I had this, I don't want to say pressure, because it wasn't that, but this,
like, an expectation.
No, I guess it was the lack of. It was like the full, like, blatant understanding that nobody expected anything from you because you're a piece of shit.
Your expectation was no expectations.
Yeah.
Like, that was literally it.
And I'll tell you, I lived up to them bitches every day. I'm not proud of it. Like, I was alcoholic for like a decade. Don't recommend it. But
not great for your liver.
All right, I got you. He got kicked. I gotta get him back in there.
Jay got kicked?
Yeah.
Ah.
All right, sent. Where am I? Yes, here. Where was I?
You're just talking about your lack of expectations for college.
And it put the idea of college became this, like, this thing on the horizon, this moon to grab, or, like, do you know the proverb of, like, the frog in the well and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, and it was just this thing I looked up at. And it's just this thing you look up at, like, there it is. I can never touch that ever. But the truth is, like, you just got to reach for it, and you just never feel like you can when you're in that position. I feel like. Jay, did you get it?
I don't see him in here.
Me neither, but I don't see you either, so.
Oh, you haven't seen me for like hours. I've still been here.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I get it. We're so boring. Sage fell asleep. Jay's
Oh my God,
phone
that was
kicked him out. I get it. I get it.
Funny.
I get it. I see
That
how it is.
was so funny.
That was. Dude, we're just talking. All of a sudden, I'm just like, wait. Do I hear? Just.
Yep.
Oh my God, Sage! If you watch this later, you are appreciated as a person, and that was just funny. There's no other way around it. But yeah, she fell right the fuck to sleep.
That was it was pretty good. I appreciated all of that. That was fantastic.
Yeah. I wish we had somebody else, because her falling asleep like woke me up with laughter. Like, so I feel like if somebody else fell asleep, she would have woken up, you know?
Right.
Oh man.
She was like, I didn't fall asleep. Like,
I know,
no,
she woke up
you-
10 minutes later like, I was just chilling here. I wasn't asleep. It's like, oh honey, no.
You need to really go to sleep.
Right?
Oh,
Where the heck is he?
poor gal.
I'll send it again.
Did we lose Jay forever?
I'm not sure. I'm trying him again.
Okay.
Sending him an invite.
I am here.
There we go.
Yay.
Yes.
He's back.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Oh, there's my pen. Yeah. So where were we? What were we talking about before your phone kicked you? Pff, like that ever happens with Google Hangouts.
Nah, what happened was I got an alarm where it said time for bed, my guy, and I accidentally like swiped up. And you know when you're like trying to kill the alarm, but you accidentally kill Google Hangouts instead of your alarm page? Yeah.
I bet not.
So, yeah. So I was a little mad.
So yeah.
Yeah. But what were we talking about?
Shit, that's what I asked you, Sabi. What were we talking about? You're the stenographer. You're the stenographer.
Well, I think we were kind of approaching the topic of like what I guess you could say society, but I was more on the kick of like high school and preparing you for college and what your expectations are. I felt that when I was in high school, it was there was still that pressure, like that expectation, but I feel like it's become even worse as the younger generations go through it. I feel like the anxiety level with regard to it is much higher.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. It's a lot of it is because of schools, and Jordan Peterson said this, and I've never thought of it this way, but it's so fucking true. Is that colleges have come together to steal the future earnings of all of their students by charging exorbitant amount of monies for what is essentially free information. And like colleges didn't used to cost this much. They just
never did.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
as they became more of a societal demand, they got to kind of dictate their prices, and they got to do their own thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I'm also pretty sure that America is one of the worst with regard to that.
oh yeah, America's one of the worst in general in regards to the way that their financial system is geared to. Well, okay, say the worst is probably very wrong, and I'm uneducated in this matter, so I will concede that. But America's system for handling its people is through controlled money distribution, and they just make sure that most people don't have it. That's really what it comes down to. the people for the bread and circuses, like our movie actors and sports stars, that get all the money, and that's okay with us because they provide us with the things we want. Those circuses, they distract us from the fact that really we're being slowly like monetized in every little bit of our lives. You know what I mean? But it's okay because Beyonce got a new album out and her outfit is fierce. Like that's really what it is, like long and short of it. And that's like for some reason I'm maybe I'm weird, but I don't believe that any person on the planet should have more than say $100 million. That's an exorbitant amount of money that you never have the ability to spend in your entire life. You know what I mean? Like if you really like understand it, it's just a stupid amount of money. And especially if like there's people in the same state as you that isn't eating. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
right.
For me it's amount of social responsibility when you have that much wealth. There's this fucking I can't remember it word for word, but there's this biblical verse that they love to spew out. And they used it to justify slavery. Jeff Sessions used it to justify the travesty of Trump. It's one of the worst lines in the Bible, and it was put in there during the Council of Nicaea, which is definitely the more man-made part of the Bible, like emphasis on man-made. And that's that any position held in a position of power, they're there, because of the grace of God. Essentially, we're in the position we're in because God wants us to be there. And you're in the position you're in because God wants you to be there. You know
I think that's tomfoolery. It's
the dumbest shit I've ever fucking heard.
As someone who was... Go ahead.
But
finish your thought.
Yeah, thank you, because I'll definitely forget.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, I already lost it. Go ahead.
No, please. You were there. You got it. You were moving.
Fuck. It's okay. Go ahead. I'll find it later.
No, my bad, man. I apologize.
No, it's all right.
It's just like it's someone who was raised in the church and still goes to church. Someone is a Christian where you feel like, okay, you're ordained to suffer. You're ordained to be in this low stage of your life where I'm meant to take advantage of you.
I got it back.
Abuse you.
Because you brought me to
go ahead.
it. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
And the idea is like God puts us in the positions that we're supposed to be in, but there's never the idea of the responsibility to God or to man in general for the position that God put you in. It's always just I'm here because I'm supposed to be here, la di da di da. Not I'm here because God wants me to help people. It's always I'm here because God wants me to have money and power and shit like that. There's like so many fucking preachers. Tim Robbins. No, not Tim Robbins. Who's that really schmarmy preacher dude with the skinny face you just want to like break in half?
I have no idea.
There's a lot of them. But these televangelists that preach like wealth, like if God, just the preaching of wealth prosperity is the worst thing that happened to God and religion ever. Yes, and mega church speeches. Thank you, Light Ruler 003. And if you just between us, if you start slagging that stuff, just be careful. All right, I don't know what state you're in, but I don't know how lax they are, but just be careful.
Now, I'll definitely say someone who's grown up in that environment, grown up in a Christian church. I know I've looked at the Bible in the most practical way I can. I've researched my answers. I found everything that I need to do. And I've come to the conclusion that anyone that preaches a doctrine where you are ordained to suffer, and this is where God wanted you to be, is to be suffering, it's false. It's not. That doesn't make sense. Because if you love somebody, one thing I really just want people to understand when it comes to the message of God is that God is love. All right? That's where it should start, and that's where it should end. It shouldn't go anywhere beyond that. So if you are preaching a message to people where you say you should be where you're at now and you're suffering, wrong. That's not the answer. What you need to understand, and I won't necessarily say I agree with you with the prosperity preaching and everything like that, but that's a whole nother discussion, and that's not even necessary because I know where you're coming from. So I have no anger against anything that you said, because at the end of the day, where you're coming from is a point where people are suffering. and they shouldn't be suffering. And I 1,000% agree with you. And I believe there is a point in time where we have to come together and understand that people that use the Bible and add political influence with the Bible, I just don't like where that goes, because then you allow yourself to read the Bible and interpret it in a way that allows you to control people and make them think that they're supposed to be in a place where they really shouldn't be, when they should be interpreting the Bible for themselves and going through their own personal journey with the Bible, but not using the Bible as propaganda to control people and make them think that they should be suffering the way they are. I think that's what's extremely important. And when you mentioned Jeff Sessions, I was like, oh my God, that's absolutely right. There's no way you should be using Bible verses to justify people suffering.
And it's the exact quote
just,
that was widely used to justify slavery. Like, that's
slavery. Slavery is so funny, because it's just like, I get it, and I get why people are so hostile against Christianity when it comes to slavery, because literally Europeans use the Bible as a medium to enslave people and break their ability to think for themselves, to break them down to a point where the only thing they could cling to was Christianity, without even having a choice of actually analyzing Christianity for themselves and deciding to convert. It's just a bunch of fallacies. So what they've done is they've used something that's supposed to be pure and from God, and they've turned it into a weapon of power, and they have absolutely crippled an entire, not even just, you crippled generations of people because of greed, because of human nature. And then somehow we want to tap into that same energy. It makes me sick. It genuinely makes me absolutely nauseous that people would use something like the Bible and use it as a medium to control people and use it as power. It makes me sick, and I can't take it.
You know what? That's a whole topic for like another conversation that I'm going to plan, because religion is a huge, beautiful topic that I would like to discuss.
I'd love to talk about that. If you ever do that, please.
I'm definitely gonna.
Beautiful.
I'm definitely gonna. But all right.
And the only thing I will say with regard to that is that and this is just my opinion, is that the Bible is 100% a tool, and it is used in a menagerie of ways. And it can be used for great good and great evil. And I think that, people use it to stay on the topic of depression. There are thousands, hundreds and thousands of people who reach for the Bible as a way to kind of alleviate part of that burden. And it works for a lot of people, but I think that too, like, there's a lot of animosity there.
Animosity it makes is almost one of the other key parts of human nature. Like, the idea of the grass being greener or better or blah, 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 and wanting what somebody else has. Like, we said it with the bullying. It's just this basic lizard-brained part that we still haven't evolved out of yet.
That's true.
Which, I mean, as a species, there's only so much you can blame yourself for not being evolved past a certain, predatory brained part. There's only so much you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But
agreed.
As somebody who's self-aware and sentient and capable of introspective thought and, behavior changing patterns, you're able to identify good things and bad things and act accordingly. And that's really what the shift is and what the big change is from then, I think. And now, to jump back to the social media thing, now, and the bullying, because we kind of jumped way side on that one. The idea that cyberbullying and things like that have become so modern day that people just joke them off, despite the fact that, please tell me the last time anybody within 50 feet of your house went a day without Facebook or Twitch or Twitter or whatever thing they have for social media. Because I promise you, they fucking don't.
Right.
It's just not it's just not our society anymore. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're living out in like some rural Saskatchewan, Canada, fucking some bumblefuck ass place, like you're probably have no choice but for social media to be the main form of not only information in the world, but information in your general community. You know what I mean?
Well, I wish that weren't true, but I feel like it generally is true.
It's horrible. But yeah.
So, that's the whole. Did you see that there was a documentary called it was like The Hack or something like that on Netflix, that was like a documentary following the like fake news and like all of the like social media like manipulation that occurred because of all of the data that people were using against others during the election?
No, I did not, but I wrote it down, so I will.
Holy crap. It's bad.
It's bad. Yeah,
and I mean, social media is driving this whole new aspect of control of our lives that we don't even realize. Like the true puppet masters behind the scenes now have all of the information they need to tailor make ads and propaganda to turn our brains exactly where they want it to go.
No, and that is the worst truth of tonight, and it backs up my tinfoil hat theory about them wanting us to be depressed in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because a depressed populace is a much easier to control populace.
Yeah, no, that's very true. People who feel of no value are much easier to control.
That kind of ties into the whole pharmaceutical company theory and everything like that. They want you to be depressed so they can, funnel in more revenue by antidepressants and all kinds of things like that.
Oh yeah,
exactly, dude.
So you wanna know something? This is semi off topic, but it highlights exactly what you're talking about. So my company that I work for is Blue Pearl, but it is owned and managed by Mars, the candy company. And what I will tell you is that the candy company that makes the chocolate that poisons the dogs are also the ones that are taking your money to fix your dog after they've caused the toxicity. And that's exactly what you've alluded to with that.
I don't mean to be fucked up, but that is a dope hustle.
But that's what I mean. Like
they
when it comes to pharmaceuticals, of course they are going to cause the depression that they can then treat. Mm-hmm. Of course they are.
Yeah, and therein lies the thing. And we're only just now starting. No other country in the world treats pharmaceuticals the way America does. No other like first world advanced country is even anywhere near the way America treats. You know what I mean? Their pharmaceutical representation, and like it's just capitalism is an okay thing, but there needs to be like capitalistic socialism.
And I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of people think, like straight up socialism, the right answer. But I think people don't understand that there's no perfect system. There's always going to be something that you can abuse within a system that you create. And capitalism has pharmaceutical. That's the horrible side of capitalism, if we're going to be absolutely honest. And there's definitely other sides of capitalism that's just horrific to begin with. But if you go into another extreme, you do realize that you're not balanced. Life is not black and white, but life is gray. So is depression. Depression will affect everybody. So then if you go into an extreme of one side, you realize that there's going to be someone who's going to benefit from that extreme. Yeah. Which is why you have the extreme of, we have these antidepressants to cure your extreme depression. We have these chocolate bars. It's great. It tastes good. It's extremely tasteful. But the side effects are you're probably going to be depressed. Your dog's going to get sick. You may die. But that's not our problem. We have a fix. You know what I mean? It's just like two different extremities on one side, and there's always something to be abused when you have an extreme.
Oh yeah, without a
true.
doubt. And I think it's always crazy to me how, and especially I feel like in our current climate, how polarized people are with regard to things. It's like it's either black or it's white, and anything else is wrong or crazy or psychotic. And the people who are like, but wait, there's totally a gray. Like, could we talk about maybe fusing a couple of these systems and maybe making everyone's life better? Could we talk about that? And they're like, fuck you, you're a psycho.
Yeah, no, and it's because, and it's not even that they. It's not even. It's the they that does that. Like, and they're so stupid. People are so vocal. Is really what it comes down to, and they'll believe if they don't understand something, they'll believe the first person that translates it for them in a way they do understand, so that they don't feel stupid anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's human nature because we don't like feeling A, inferior, B, stupid. We just don't. You know what I mean? So we want to believe something we understand. And if somebody explains it to us, it's usually like, oh, all right, cool, thank you. You know, da 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 da. And that has led to so much misinformation. Because so many stupid people are telling stupid people what to do. And it's like, that's the problem. Like, there's
And
no
it's
problem.
idiocracy.
Yes, it is, and it's going there so fast. Like, if Donald Trump was as strong as he was stupid, he would literally be Camacho.
He would literally be Camacho.
Like, I don't know how else to put that, but like,
It has what plants crave.
yeah, it has what plants crave: electrolytes. Electrolytes.
Water from like the toilet.
Yeah, Valen.
What's up?
I gotta go.
No, actually, can you give me your final thoughts? Because I'm like, oh, this has been going on for like 3 hours. Let's end this. So yeah, give me your final thoughts, like a little wrap up, from your perspective, and anything you feel you would like to just kind of leave with. Maybe even plug yourself a little bit.
I would just say, just as for anybody who is watching now or watches later on, please listen to everything that's been said, because there has been two separate dynamics spoken about, two different upbringings, two different stages in life that's been brought up, and it's all reached the same conclusion: depression. And when you realize that depression can happen to anybody, you realize that you're human. And I think it's very important, if you're going through depression right now, is to understand what it really means to be human, and understand that you have to think of yourself as an individual, and then think about everyone else around you as an individual. And for you to really be able to accept the fact that you have problems, but so does the other person. And how about I try and relate to that other individual in hopes that they have a similar situation to me, but we both help each other and move forward together, because there's nothing more important than having somebody else that can see what you don't see. Because if you can't see anything, somebody who can see something can lead you in the right direction that you need to go. And I just think that's very important for everyone to really understand. That's all I really want to that's all I want to say, because I just think that is the one thing that saved me. And I'm just hoping that people that watch this really think about it, and really, you have to save yourself at the end of the day. That just people that save themselves from what is a horrible and endless spiral. So
All right.
Yeah, that's my plug.
There you go. JD Legend, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you for being honest and open, and I appreciate the compassion. So, yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it, Valen.
Peace out. Be well. All right. Sabi, your turn for some closing thoughts.
I'm not great at closing anything. I guess when it comes to my just humble opinion, I think that depression overall is one of those things that's just indiscriminate. It doesn't care who you are, what color, what race, what size, what shape. It doesn't matter. And everybody is of value. And if you're dealing with depression, like I do on a regular basis, the one thing that you just need to remind yourself of is that there's value. There's value somewhere, and you just have to find it. That's all I got.
All right. And do what I say. And sorry, do what I say. Now it's my turn to do as I've asked of you and to give my closing statements. And this conversation kind of reminds me of a poem by Robert Frost. I don't remember it word for word, but it's very famous about two paths. One is very, very well walked down, and the other one is dark and scary and has many thorn bushes and things like that. And I think of this simply because it doesn't matter which road you take if they're both going to have they're both going to be littered with depression. Like, just because there's a lot of people going someplace doesn't mean there's not a lot of depressed people. And just because this way seems the road less taken doesn't mean that there's not going to be depression there either. The truth is, depression is all around us, and it, in a lot of ways, and if you listen tonight, you can hear it, it stems from a lack of connectivity with one another. The way we distance ourselves and disassociate, and we allow ourselves to, not allow ourselves, but we find that we spiral inward instead of expressing outward the pain, the heartache, the anger, even mild little angsty things that we whine about. It doesn't matter. Like, we keep them things bottled up, and we don't express them no matter how close we are to somebody. And depression is just the manifestation of a culture systemically separating each other, like itself from one another. And like, I would almost bet dollars to donuts there was not that many depressed Native Americans back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, just because their community emphasized so much community and so on and so forth. And I believe that the thing we've lost the most is that connectivity, is that special bond we have that only people can have with each other. And we think it's so small and so precious that we hide it and we don't give it out freely, like it's something we can monetize, or some finite thing that there's so little of, when the truth is there's as much of it as you want there to be. And there's as much love as you can give as you are brave enough to give. And depression is, as we've said before, you can notice it yourself, but taking somebody's hand is always going to be the quicker path out of that darkness, out of that quicksand, out of that light. Like, this depression shit is real. And people want to laugh it off like it's a flex, like they're just doing it to ride a particular wave. Yeah, that wave is the acceptance that mental health is real. That wave is the acceptance that people are understanding that they have an intrinsic fucking value, that nothing that society can do, that other people, the community, can take away will devalue them. And they're starting to understand that. They're starting to fight and rile against the society that's told them that they are less than. And they are starting to become strong enough to stand on their own 2 feet and say, I am fucking worth it. It doesn't matter how you feel. You're allowed to feel the way you feel, and that's fine, but I am worth it to me, and I love me for it. And there's just not enough of that. We need to help guide not only this generation, but the next, into a place of self-acceptance, because only through that acceptance of self are we allowed to truly accept other people into the scariest places of ourselves, into the place where we have no choice but to be honest. So that's what this is going to be. It's going to be an exercise in honesty. All of these streams that are going to follow, the mental health streams, which are going to be bi-weekly, these are all going to be dedicated to openness, honesty, compassion, and the understanding that no matter what we're going through, we are not alone. We are connected, and we are here. All right? This has been Captain Valen reminding everybody that life happens in every direction. So let's stick together and let's be compassionate, and we can get through this. All right. Goodbye, everybody.